Rimuru Tempest. Reincarnated as a slime. I, the master of elemental power. Chapter 81. Inside the administrative building of Tempest, Rimuru, in his human form, was wearing a set of comfortable casual clothes. He stretched widely and looked at his desk, which was finally cleared. Phew, excellent, that's everything finished. He couldn't help but sigh contentedly. There were still 3 days until the founding festival, and the backlog of official duties was finally completed. The rare moment of leisure put him in a great mood. Just then, the office door was gently pushed open. Charlotte, also in human form, with his signature blue hair and golden eyes, peeked his head in. His typically lazy expression was now somewhat softer. Rimuru, I'm here to visit. He shook the honey pancakes Shuna had just finished making, which were still steaming, and a pot of flower tea that he held in his hand. I saw your light was still on, so I brought some supplies. Perfect timing. I just finished working. Rimuru's eyes lit up, and he immediately invited him to sit down. The two sat around the coffee table. They enjoyed the perfectly sweet snacks and fragrant flower tea Shuna had carefully prepared, chatting idly all the while. Speaking of which, the preliminary design for the magic essence internal circulation system. I've already derived it using Primordial King. I'll show it to you later. That's wonderful. Having you here is a huge help, Charlotte. Otherwise, these technical problems alone would give me a massive headache. I just hate trouble. Solving it sooner means I can slack off sooner. A cozy atmosphere filled the room. However, this tranquility did not last long. Suddenly, with a loud boom, the solid wooden door of the office burst open, and amidst flying sawdust, a small yet explosive figure rushed in like a whirlwind. Rimuru. Charlotte. The Demon Lord banquet is about to start. The person who arrived was none other than Milam. She clearly hadn't held back her strength, maintaining the posture of having just smashed the door. Her bright blue eyes sparkled, and the twin tails behind her swayed from the sudden stop. Rimuru looked at the door shattered into pieces on the floor, then looked at Milam, whose expression clearly read, I'm super amazing, praise me quickly. He waved his hand resignedly and said, yes, I know, Milam. But remember to knock next time you come in. Though the door seems useless now. Charlotte elegantly swallowed the last bite of his pancake, his golden eyes looking at Milam with confusion. Demon Lord Banquet. What is that? Is it urgent? You guys didn't know. Milam put her hands on her hips and explained with I can't believe you two, look. The Demon Lord Banquet is a kind of tea party held among the Demon Lords. It's held normally too, but usually, they won't specifically call one unless there's a major event. This time, it's because Charlotte announced he became a Demon Lord, and the others want to meet the new face. She hopped onto the sofa, curled up in the most comfortable spot, and pulled out the manga 8 Dragon Balls that Rimuru had given her from somewhere. She flipped through it and added, but you don't have to go right away. The time is set for 1 week from now, which is perfect after you finish the founding festival. I'll stay here and wait for you, and then we'll go together. Rimuru and Charlotte exchanged glances, both seeing understanding in the other's eyes. So the other demon lords had already noticed Charlotte's existence. I understand. Rimuru nodded and immediately contacted Rigard via thought communication. Rigard, I need to trouble you with 2 things. First, my office door needs emergency repairs. Second, 1 week from now, Charlotte needs to formally attend a gathering of demon lords. In his capacity as a demon lord. Please immediately inform Shuna to tailor a formal suit befitting his status. Understood, Lord Rimuru. I shall attend to it immediately. Rigard's energetic voice immediately responded. At the same time, he keenly grasped the 2 key pieces of information, Demon Lord Gathering, and formal suit. The message quickly reached Shuna. A formal gathering of demon lords. Lord Charlotte's first appearance before the demon lords. Shuna's voice carried a hint of nervousness, but more so a sense of mission and excitement at being entrusted with such an important task. Please leave it to Shuna. I will definitely prepare the most perfect formal attire, worthy of Lord Charlotte's status. Before her voice faded, Shuna had already transformed into a pink blur, rushing toward her workshop and clothing design studio. She had a full week, which was ample time, allowing her to conceptualize freely. Inside the workshop, Shuna was completely focused, her mind brimming with inspiration. She imagined Lord Charlotte's waterfall-like blue hair should be tied up high, leaving a few strands to frame his face, making his golden eyes even more brilliant. The upper body would be a lightweight armor with smooth lines and glittering gold, showcasing the demon lord's majesty without losing elegance. The lower half would be designed as a cutting-edge, Cheongsam-style, open silver-white skirt armor. When he walked, one could faintly see delicate, black, full-body stockings covering his long, slender legs beneath the skirt armor, adding a touch of mystery and allure to the heroic and dashing look. The overall style would be handsome, majestic, formal, and dignified, possessing a unique, gender-transcending charm. Ah, Lord Charlotte would look absolutely stunning in an outfit like this. Shuna blushed, lost in her own conceptualization. However, returning to reality, Shuna, based on her understanding of Lord Charlotte's personality, knew that while the above design was perfect, it might not align with Lord Charlotte's everyday preferences and comfort zone. Therefore, she calmed her mind and suppressed the overly extravagant concept, focusing instead on designing formal attire that better matched Lord Charlotte's usual temperament while still maintaining the dignity of a demon lord. The main color scheme would be deep sky blue paired with dark gold trim. The style needed to be fitted and sharp, a long robe design convenient for movement. But the tailoring had to be extremely refined, and defensive magic arrays must also be woven into the fabric. Professional light shimmered in Shuna's eyes. A week was enough time for her to turn the perfect design in her mind into reality. Meanwhile, in the office, Milam was completely engrossed in the world of 8 Dragon Balls, occasionally letting out exclamations of, "Wada!" Rimuru and Charlotte continued discussing the final details of the founding festival, as if the recent interruption was just a minor ripple in their busy daily lives. At the pole of the frozen continent at the world's northernmost point stands a magnificent palace carved from 10,000-year ancient ice that never melts. Inside the palace, splendor intertwines with cold, and a figure lazily leans against a throne fashioned from a single block of polished obsidian. He has a head of fiery red short hair, like the only living flame dancing across the ice plains. His golden vertical pupils are half open, revealing a hint of nonchalance and a detached gaze over all living things. A playful smile tugs at his handsome face, and an undeniable aura of one of the oldest demon lords radiates from his entire being. He is Guy Crimson, one of the strongest demon lords of this age. Also the mediator, who maintains a subtle balance in the world. A graceful, impeccably composed maid. Rain delicately lifts a silver fork and places a chilled, ruby-red berry into his mouth. The Jura Great Forest to the east has seemed rather lively lately. She swallows the berry, then abruptly says something without preamble, his golden eyes drifting toward the distance as if they could pierce the veil of space. Rain continues moving, calmly responding. Are you referring to the newly formed Monster Federation? According to scattered reports, its leader appears to be a slime named Rimuru, and an unknown monster named Charlotte. They have indeed shown remarkable potential, but for now they seem controllable. Potential. Hey, perhaps. She gives a noncommittal laugh and shifts to a more comfortable posture. That slime is interesting, but what truly catches my attention is the other one. That fellow called Charlotte has a very distinctive aura, unlike ordinary monsters. Rain nods slightly. Shall I send subordinates to investigate in detail? No need. She waves his hand, looking disinterested. As long as they don't break my board, let them cause whatever trouble they wish. A few days later, the same ice-glimmering palace remains. The dozing Chi suddenly opens his eyes, a genuine surprise flashing in his golden vertical pupils. Oh, that's rather unexpected. Rain, standing beside him, instantly casts an inquisitive look. Just now, Chi's mouth curves into an interested arc. That Charlotte has proclaimed herself a demon lord. Her aura is clear, though still somewhat youthful. Yet her rank has already reached, and the texture of that power is truly unique. Rain's expression grows a bit more serious. The birth of a new demon lord could upset the balance. Should we act immediately, Master? Chi lightly taps the armrest of the throne, producing a crisp sound. As if pondering, yet his face shows little tension, more like a child who has found a new toy. Calling herself a demon lord and choosing the moment before the founding ceremony, is it a proclamation or the boldness of the ignorant? He murmurs to himself, then looks at Rain. Rain, prepare a demon lord banquet. Under what pretense? Rain asks, already moving into execution mode. Pretense. Of course it's to welcome the new colleague joining us. Chi's smile carries a mischievous hint. This new friend seems quite the character. I can't let him casually disrupt my board. Or, be foolishly swayed by that old-fashioned Rudra. He pauses, then adds, the time is set for a week later, after they finish their own founding ceremony. I'll send my invitation there, the address, just the old place. As you wish, Lord Chi. Rain bows and receives the order, then confirms. So, regarding this new demon Lord Charlotte, what is our ultimate expectation? Chi closes his eyes again, returning to his lazy posture, as if the decision was made on a whim. If I find him pleasing, I'll let him join us, to play with me. If not. His voice drops lower, edged with an undeniable chill. Let him be a bit more obedient, don't give me trouble. As for the specifics, we'll decide when the time comes. Understood. Rain says no more, quietly steps back to prepare the Demon Lord banquet invitations. To her, this is merely another whimsical mediation by Lord Chi in his long life. Hey, Rimuru. Charlotte gently placed the white porcelain teacup, adorned with delicate patterns, back onto its saucer, emitting a crisp clinking sound. He leaned languidly back in the soft armchair, his long legs crossed. His golden eyes, sparkling with thoughtful light in the afternoon sun, gazed at his friend who was sipping honey tea beside him. I've been observing for several days, and it seems we're missing an important executive. For example, a finance minister, specifically responsible for managing the national treasury's income and expenditure and financial planning. As he spoke, his fingers unconsciously tapped lightly on the armrest of the chair, a habitual gesture when he was thinking. In recent days, he had watched Rimuru muddle through piles of documents, from infrastructure construction to the distribution of supplies to various races. He was so busy that even the time to enjoy Shuna's special desserts was compressed. This led him to begin scrutinizing the management structure of this nascent nation. Rimuru, who was comfortably enjoying the rare peaceful afternoon, heard this and, as if a sore spot had been poked, his shoulders slumped slightly. He placed the half-finished honey tea on the table and sighed helplessly. Yeah. Kijin and Milt are busy with technology and engineering construction. Gabaru is leading the lizardmen in developing new farmland. Rigard, as the Minister of Internal Affairs, is already swamped. He counted on his fingers, his brow furrowing more and more with each count. Honestly, it's not just a finance minister, we're short-staffed in all areas. Government affairs, construction, diplomacy, education. I feel like we lack core executives who can take charge of things everywhere. Just thinking about it gives me a headache. Documents are going to pile up again. His delicate face was etched with the despair of a corporate slave, as if he could already see the dark days ahead, buried under endless paperwork. Is that so? Charlotte looked at the obvious, not yet faded fatigue on Rimuru's face. And the faint shadows under his eyes, his voice unconsciously softening a little. Then you're working too hard. There was a hint of imperceptible guilt in his tone, as he had cleverly pushed many of the tasks requiring thought and planning onto his more diligent and responsible companion, simply because he feared trouble. I especially don't want to hear that from you, who always slacks off and pushes everything onto me. HMPH. Rimuru puffed out his cheeks, like an aggrieved hamster, and glared angrily at Charlotte. He casually picked up a warm, sweet-smelling honey scone that Shuna had just baked, and took a big, vengeful bite. Ahaha tilde the capable do more work, you know. Charlotte let out a light, ambiguous chuckle, cleverly avoiding a direct response. He also reached out and picked up a pink rice cake shaped like a petal. He elegantly brought it to his mouth, savoring its refreshing, not too sweet taste. A brief silence flowed between the two, broken only by the faint sounds of town construction outside the window. And the rustling sound of Milam flipping through a manga book in the corner sofa. Sunlight streamed through the clean glass window, casting warm patches of light on the polished floor. The air was filled with the sweet scent of pastries and the crisp aroma of herbal tea. After a while, Charlotte seemed to remember something and changed to a more relaxed topic, breaking the tranquility. Oh, right, how are the ceremonial fireworks for the founding ceremony coming along? And the indispensable fireworks that will light up the entire night sky. This is an important part of boosting national morale and displaying our image to the outside world. He imagined countless points of light blooming in the sky, adorning the Tempest night sky with dazzling splendor, and the corners of his mouth curved slightly upward. At the mention of this, Rimuru immediately perked up. A look of pride, like sunlight breaking through dark clouds, appeared on his face, and his earlier minor complaints were instantly cast aside. Don't worry about that. I've entrusted Kijin and Besta with full responsibility. I heard they've already completed their joint research, utilizing some magic ore powder and a special combination of magic circles. The effect is said to be incredibly stunning, with colors and patterns never seen before. Having them around is a huge help, they're very reliable. His tone was filled with trust and pride in his companion's abilities. Is that so? That's great. Charlotte nodded in satisfaction, his golden eyes also showing anticipation. It's sure to surprise everyone then. After another comfortable silence, Charlotte's gaze once again turned to the window. Watching the goblins and orcs in the distant square busily and orderly preparing for the celebration, his voice sounded again. This time, it carried a hint of imperceptible wistfulness, as if his thoughts had drifted to a distant place. Hey, Rimuru, he paused, seemingly weighing his words. Have you never thought about going back? He turned his head to look at Rimuru, clarifying, our original world. Rimuru's hand, holding the teacup, paused slightly, a flicker of surprise crossing his face. Then he slowly put down the cup, revealing a smile of relief mixed with a touch of complexity. He looked out at the blue sky, his gaze distant. That world, we can't go back, can we? After all, we're both dead. Our bodies were probably cremated. He gently rubbed the warm cup, continuing. To be reborn like this, to have a new life, to meet Veldora, to establish this nation. To have so many family and friends willing to follow and trust me, honestly, I'm already very content and fortunate. He turned back and smiled at Charlotte, a warm and sincere smile. Thinking about it, my current life, though busy, is also full of fulfillment and joy I've never experienced before. If I had to describe it, it's probably the feeling of, I'm so happy here, I don't miss home. Is that so? Charlotte repeated softly, his gaze following Rimuru's to the drifting clouds outside the window. Those golden eyes, usually holding a hint of detachment and languor, now seemed to reflect no specific image. Only gazing into a distant void. That world. His voice was very soft, like a feather falling. For me, there's nothing particularly worth remembering. No one I'm concerned about, no unfinished business. It's like leaving a hotel where I've stayed for a long time but felt no warmth. His voice gradually became clear and firm, his gaze returning from the distant void to refocus on Rimuru. That look shed its usual abstractness and nonchalance, becoming exceptionally clear and warm, with an undeniable earnestness. But here, it's different. He leaned forward slightly, speaking each word distinctly. Here, I have you all. I have you, a companion who understands me, Gabiru, that noisy idiot. I have Milam, Shuna, Benamaru, Soe, and this place we built together, called home. Before he finished speaking, Charlotte suddenly leaned forward without warning. He opened his arms and gave Rimuru a firm, irresistibly warm hug. His arms wrapped around Rimuru's shoulders with moderate strength, carrying a steadfast gentleness. Clearly conveying that bond and sense of belonging that was difficult to express precisely in words. Rimuru's body stiffened slightly at the sudden action, caught off guard. He could clearly feel Charlotte's slightly cool body temperature, different from a human's. And the sincere emotion hidden beneath that languid exterior. After a moment of stunned, Rimuru's surprise turned into an equally gentle smile. She raised her hand, gently stroking Charlotte's head resting on his lap, and whispered, me too. Hey, what sneaky things are you doing? Just then, Milam, who had been nestled in the sofa, seemingly completely immersed in the world of the 8 Dragon Balls manga, occasionally making Kamehameha and similar imitation sounds, suddenly sprang up from the sofa as if she had caught a whiff of something extremely interesting. She stomped her bare feet, thump thump thump, On the floor, her cheeks puffed out. Her clear, bright blue eyes were full of strong dissatisfaction and curiosity at being left out. Hugs. You're secretly hugging without calling me. That's too sneaky. I want hugs too. She shouted loudly, announcing her presence, while rushing over like an energetic little cannonball. She unhesitatingly opened her arms, with her unique, unclouded enthusiasm. With a bang, she squeezed tightly between Rimuru and Charlotte, hugging both of them. Her small body erupted with astonishing strength, wedging itself between the two. Whoa. Milam, be gentle. Ah. Milam, your strength. The warm and peaceful space for two was instantly broken. The office was filled with Milam's cheerful laughter, Rimuru's helpless exclamations, and Charlotte's indulgent sighs. The three of them piled up, laughing together, and the faint sentimentality and deep resonance about past and present lives were instantly washed away without a trace by this noisy, real, present warmth. The sunlight was still warm, the tea aroma still lingered, and this precious bond forged in another world also became stronger and more dazzling amidst the laughter and playful antics. 2 days before the founding ceremony. As the first ray of morning sun just touched the magic spires of Lilam City, the entire city awoke from its slumber. Operating with even greater vigor than usual. The air was filled with a special energy, a festive prelude mixed with tension, anticipation, and boundless excitement. Colorful flags and magical light strips crisscrossed above the streets. Workers were making final decorative adjustments, and everywhere was a scene of bustling activity. At the entrance of the central administrative building, Rimuru and Charlotte stood side by side in their human forms. Well then, shall we begin? Rimuru took a deep breath, his face reflecting the solemn determination of an office worker facing a major project deadline. He had changed into a relatively simple yet dignified governor's attire today. Let's go. Charlotte still maintained his usual lazy and casual demeanor. But the golden eyes held less of their usual nonchalance and more of a cautious glint. He casually straightened the collar of his blue robe. Their first stop was the City Security Command Center. Benimaru and Soe were already waiting there, and on the huge city magic sandbox, dense light dots represented the positions of various patrol teams. Lord Rimuru, Lord Charlotte, Benimaru reported in a deep voice. Regular patrols within the city and within 50 miles of its periphery have been increased to 3 shifts. And all critical nodes are doubly monitored by the Ogre and Soe's shadow guards. The magic barrier has also been tuned to its optimal state and can be activated at any time. Soe added from the side, his voice calm and unruffled. 17 potential security risks have been eliminated, and all unidentified outsiders are on the surveillance list. During the founding ceremony, air traffic control will be strictly enforced, and unauthorized flying objects will be immediately intercepted. Rimuru carefully examined the sandbox and nodded. Thank you for your hard work, Benimaru, Soe. Security is paramount, there must be no mishaps. Charlotte, meanwhile, extended a finger and tapped several seemingly inconspicuous corners on the sandbox. These blind spots can be equipped with Eyes of Silence, a concealed magical surveillance device. Leaving the command center, they headed to the Central Grand Plaza, the main venue for the founding ceremony. Here, it was even more bustling. Gobta was riding Ranga, directing the wolf cavalry to assist the dwarf craftsmen in setting up the final viewing stands and the main speech platform. Lord Rimuru. Lord Charlotte. This will be ready in no time. Gobta saw them, waved excitedly, and almost slid off Ranga's back. In the distance, Geld was leading a team of orcs, chanting slogans, testing the stability of the salute cannon's base. 1, 2, 3, heave ho. Heavy stone materials seemed weightless in their hands. Rimuru carefully checked the stability and visibility of the platform. While Charlotte offered suggestions for fine-tuning the brightness and color-switching modes of the magic lamp posts around the plaza, ensuring the best visual effect at night. Next, they arrived at the temporarily designated performance area. Performance teams from various races were conducting their final rehearsals here. The thunderous drums of the goblins, traditional war dance, the shimmering cold light of the ogres, elegant sword dance. The ancient and desolate chanting of the lizardmen's primitive sacrificial rites. And the comical magic mechanical tricks brought by the dwarves, drew cheers from the other staff members watching. How is the catering area? Rimuru asked Rigurd, who was in charge of the area, with concern. Everything is going smoothly, Lord Rimuru. Rigurd replied spiritedly. Food supplies are ample and have passed 3 safety inspections, and the kitchen area is fully prepared. Sufficient to handle the anticipated large influx of guests during the ceremony. Shuna personally supervised the final menu approval. After a round of inspections, the solemnity on Rimuru's face gradually gave way to satisfaction and anticipation. Everyone has truly worked so hard, he sighed with genuine emotion. Charlotte looked at the orderly yet vibrant scene before him and also nodded slightly. It seems we can look forward to a perfect opening. Meanwhile, in Shuna's exclusive workshop, the atmosphere was one of extreme focus and tranquility. Sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating the profound, tempest blue, fabric spread out on the workbench, like the night sky. Shuna was kneeling nearby, holding a fine needle threaded with dark golden magic silk, holding her breath in concentration as she performed the final embroidery. She was embroidering the emblem of the Rimuru Tempest Federation, as well as some ancient magic patterns imbued with the meaning of protection and majesty. Every stitch, every thread, was infused with her utmost respect and blessings for Lord Charlotte. Her gaze was terrifyingly focused, fine beads of sweat even appeared on her forehead, but she seemed oblivious. Here, the luster could be improved a bit more. The magic circuit on the collar needs further fine-tuning to ensure absolutely smooth magic essence flow. The comfort of the lining must be top-notch, to not cause Lord Charlotte even a hint of discomfort. She would occasionally pause, feeling the texture of the fabric with her fingertips, and using faint magic essence to activate the magical effects of the embroidery for testing. Striving for flawless perfection in every detail. For her, crafting this demon lord's attire for Lord Charlotte was not just completing a task, but also a supreme honor and an emotional devotion. In contrast to Shuna's quiet demeanor, Milam was zipping through the city like a whirlwind. In contrast to Shuna's quiet demeanor, Milam was zipping through the city like a whirlwind. Wow! This is so tall. She suddenly leapt to the top of the newly erected viewing stand, startling Gobta below into a loud cry. Oh! This cannon is so loud. She leaned next to the salute cannon, tapping the barrel with her finger under Geld's horrified gaze. Look! They can breathe fire. She yelled excitedly in the performance area, wildly applauding the dwarf fire-breathing acrobats, almost shaking down a nearby tent. She was like a never-ending, vibrant golden orb of light. Wherever she went, the tense atmosphere would always be broken by her innocent exclamations and laughter. The staff, initially startled, eventually grew accustomed to the demon lord's supervision style. And were even infected by her joy, working with more enthusiasm. Lord Milam, be careful not to fall. Lord Milam, would you like to try a sample of the freshly made roasted meat? She became the most popular, troublemaker, and catalyst of joy in this grand preparatory work. As the afterglow of the setting sun painted Lilam City in warm golden red hues, the first day's final sprint drew to a close. Rimuru and Charlotte stood by the window of the newly renovated office, overlooking the bustling city as lights began to twinkle. Basically, everything is ready, Rimuru sighed contentedly. Now, we just await that day's arrival. Charlotte responded softly, the city's myriad lights reflected in his golden eyes. Every corner of the city was filled with a power poised to erupt. The founding ceremony was drawing ever closer. The day before the founding festival. When the dawn light once again fell upon Lilam, the city's atmosphere was different from the day before. Added to the underlying tension of preparation was a sense of formality and grandeur. Today was the day the guests from all 4 directions arrived. In the teleportation area specially cleared in the central plaza, space subtly warped. And a stable, faintly glowing teleportation gate slowly opened. The first to step out was the robust and resolute dwarf King Gazel Dwargo. He was clad in heavy armor, followed by a valiant troop of sky knights riding pure white Pegasi. This high-level procession clearly demonstrated the importance he placed on this allied nation's festival. King Gazel. Welcome. Rimuru and Charlotte personally greeted him in front of the teleportation circle. Gazel's booming voice rang out. My younger brother Rimuru, younger brother Charlotte. It looks like you've managed this place even better than the reports described. His sharp gaze swept over the orderly plaza, the unique architecture, and the confidence radiating from the faces of the various monsters moving about. He displayed his admiration without reservation. This vitality, in itself, is the greatest power. Immediately afterward, the teleportation gate lit up again. It was Fizz, the Freedom Association branch master, Yumu in formal attire, and members of his squad. They were each accompanied by a baron from their respective nations serving as an envoy. When they stepped out of the teleportation gate and saw the monster capital, which they had only read about in reports, the shock on their faces was immense. Elan's squad, who were waiting nearby to greet them, exclaimed. Is this what instantaneous teleportation feels like? It's amazing. Elan gasped, covering her mouth. Fizz took a deep breath and whispered to the Baron beside him. Now you believe that Elan and the others didn't exaggerate in their previous reports, right? This place is a truly civilized nation. The Baron nodded solemnly, complex light flickering in his eyes, a mix of astonishment and anticipation for future cooperation. Rigard led the reception team, systematically guiding the various envoys to the prepared VIP accommodation area. A series of comfortable tree houses and stone-built lodges blending monster aesthetics with dwarf craftsmanship. However, not all gazes were friendly. On a terrace in a higher commercial district of the city, a figure wearing an inconspicuous gray cloak was leaning against the railing, seemingly enjoying the city view. But in reality, his sharp gaze was sweeping over the patrolling guards on the street, the crucial magical facilities, and the location of the guest quarters. He was toying with an ordinary-looking crystal in his hand, but if anyone with keen perception were present, they would discover that the crystal was recording the surrounding magic essence flow and the guards' patrol patterns at an extremely low frequency. The defenses are tight, but not impenetrable. He muttered softly, his voice drowned out by the city's noise. Meanwhile, in the bustling marketplace, a smiling human merchant who was purchasing specialty ingredients, while haggling with a goblin shopkeeper, inadvertently glanced toward the central administration building. His earlobe twitched slightly, seemingly catching fragments of dialogue scattered in the air. These spies, belonging to the kingdom of Pharmus or the Holy Empire of Lubelius, like venomous snakes hidden in the shadows, began gathering intelligence crucial for future operations. As night fell, the daytime clamor subsided slightly. In a spacious, open-air courtyard behind the administration building, a small internal gathering was taking place. There was no formality, only the crackle of a bonfire, and the air was filled with the mouth-watering aroma of roasted meat and the sweet richness of mead. Rimuru, Charlotte, Benimaru, Shuna, Soe, Xian, Hikuro, Guren, and other core executives gathered around. Even Milam temporarily put down her manga and joined the feast. To ensure success the day after tomorrow, thank you for all your hard work. Eat and drink your fill tonight. Rimuru raised his wooden cup and happily announced. Oh. Everyone responded in unison, and the atmosphere grew lively. Shuna and Xian moved among the group, continuously serving various delicacies. Benimaru and Kijin were competing in a drinking contest. Soe sat quietly in the corner, a faint smile playing on his lips, enjoying this rare moment of relaxation. Hikuro sipped his wine slowly, watching the lively scene before him with eyes full of satisfaction. Charlotte leaned back on a comfortable cushion, holding a skewer of grilled mushrooms. He couldn't help but chuckle as he watched Rimuru busy being pestered by Milam and Gobta for another serving of honey-glazed ribs. He looked up at the night sky, where countless stars shimmered, reflecting the myriad lights of Lilam City. It's certainly lively, he murmured. It is, Rimuru, who had approached him unnoticed, replied, his face showing the contented flush of slight intoxication. This is the site we want to protect, isn't it? Charlotte didn't reply, he simply raised the cup in his hand and clinked it softly against Rimuru's. Everything was understood without words. As the first ray of sunlight pierced through the morning mist of the Jura Great Forest, illuminating Lilam City, the entire city had already transformed into a sea of jubilation. Not just the central plaza, but every street and open space radiating from it. And even the windows and rooftops of every household were packed with monsters of various forms. Goblins, werewolves, ogre tribe, orcs, lizardmen, all citizens belonging to the Jura Tempest Federation. As well as countless forest natives who had heard the news and were drawn by this miracle, looked on with anticipation. As far as the eye could see, there was a dense crowd. Monsters swarmed, the clamor soared to the sky, and the air was filled with a historic excitement and anticipation. A torrent of tens of thousands of monsters surrounded Lilim City, making it impenetrable. Yet, under the guidance arranged by Benimaru and Soe beforehand, they maintained astonishing order. Behind the temporary curtain set up at the back of the plaza, Rimuru, in human form, nervously clutched a scroll of his speech. He muttered to himself, fine beads of sweat even seeping from his temples. Ah, on this memorable day, and then, we gather here. Ah, what was I supposed to say next? He felt more nervous than facing an army. He felt more nervous than facing an army. Beside him, the burly and naturally imposing dwarf King Gazel stood with his arms crossed. Shaking his head helplessly at Rimuru's appearance, his booming voice carrying undeniable authority. My younger brother Rimuru. Hold your head high, puff out your chest. You are now a king. About to face the citizens you swore to protect. Your words will lay the foundation of this new nation. How can you be so timid and hesitant? He stepped forward and slapped Rimuru hard on the back, almost making him stumble. Presence. You must have a presence that looks down on the world. Your speech doesn't need flowery words, but it must be full of power and sincerity. You must let them know that by following you, their future is bright. This is the responsibility of a king. Rimuru grimaced from the slap but subconsciously straightened his back, saying with a bitter face. Yes, yes. My elder brother Gazel, but there are too many people, too many monsters. When the appointed time arrived, a clear horn blast echoed throughout the city. All the clamor was instantly choked by an invisible hand, abruptly falling silent. Countless gazes simultaneously turned towards the temporary, yet incredibly solemn, platform in the center of the plaza. Rimuru took a deep breath, and under Gazel's encouraging and intimidating gaze, walked to the front of the stage with as steady a pace as possible. He looked down at the crowd. And at the countless pairs of eyes full of trust and expectation reflected throughout the city via the magic screen, his heart pounding. He opened his mouth, the elaborate words he had prepared instantly evaporating from his mind. And what finally came out was the most unadorned sentiment from his heart. Everyone, my family, my compatriots. His voice, amplified by the magic device, clearly echoed in every corner of Lilim, we have finally reached this day. He looked around at the familiar faces below, Benimaru, Shuna, Soe, Xian, Gobta, and Charlotte, standing a little further away, nodding slightly at him, and Milam, excitedly pumping her fists nearby. From the day we met, from the day we decided not to hide anymore, to build a home for ourselves, for each other. We have weathered countless storms. We have lost a lot, but we have also gained more. Today, we stand here, not by my strength alone, but by every one of us, a miracle forged together with our hands, our sweat, and our faith. His words gradually became smoother, his emotions more sincere. The monsters listened quietly. Many older goblins and orcs had tears in their eyes, recalling a past of hunger and days trembling under the threat of monsters. Here, there is no hierarchy of races, only comrades willing to strive for a common future. We will use our own strength to prove to this world that monsters, too, can create their own peaceful and prosperous civilization. Having said all he wanted to say, Rimuru was about to announce the most crucial sentence to conclude his speech. He had just raised his hand, and the crowd below was about to erupt in cheers. Ahem. King Gazel's deep, authoritative cough came from behind him, his eyes clearly saying. That's it. Presence. What about future plans? Rimuru flinched, his half-raised hand freezing in midair, a somewhat awkward, I understand, smile on his face. And he quickly added. In the future, we will continue to advance side by side with our ally, the mighty dwarf kingdom. We will establish schools for the next generation to acquire knowledge. We will develop trade to make life more prosperous. We will protect this forest, protect our common home, Rimuru Tempest. He racked his brain, squeezing out a few more points for the future blueprint he could think of, feeling more exhausted than processing official documents for 3 consecutive days. Finally, he used all his strength, raised his right arm high, and declared to the whole world in a clear and resonant voice. Now, I declare, the Rimuru Tempest Federation of Monsters is officially established on this day. Silence. Absolute silence that lasted less than a second. Then, oh 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 oh. Long live Lord Rimuru. Long live Lord Charlotte. Long live Tempest. Long live the Rimuru Tempest Federation. Like a volcano that had accumulated for 10,000 years, erupting with a roar, deafening cheers, roars, cries, laughter, from the central plaza as its core, swept out in all directions like a tsunami, instantly engulfing the entire Lilim city. The sound waves shot straight to the sky, as if even the clouds in the sky would be shattered by this pure joy and excitement. Gurren, the ogre commander known for his boldness, now had his tightly clenched fists trembling slightly. His crimson eyes no longer held their usual fighting spirit, but instead surged with an indescribable excitement and pride. He looked at the figure on the high platform, his heart swelling. Lord Rimuru, Lord Charlotte, we really did it. This path of following you, Gurren, is the most glorious choice of my life. Rigurd. The Goblin King, who was once frail with age, now burly and robust far beyond ordinary, could no longer suppress the turmoil in his heart. Hot tears streamed down his resolute face, he didn't wipe them away. Letting these tears, mixed with countless memories and emotions, flow freely. He recalled the simple fence of the goblin village, the fear of his people living hand to mouth, and then contrasted it with this powerful and prosperous nation before him. This tough man's voice choked, almost sobbing uncontrollably. Lord Rimuru. Lord Charlotte, we finally, have a home. Lord Rimuru. Lord Charlotte, we finally, have a home. His massive body trembled slightly with excitement, those tears were of joy, and even more so, of supreme loyalty. Gerudo looked up at the sky. The thunderous cheers in his ears seemed to transform into the past wails of his starving kin and the desperate screams during the pig-headed emperor's rampage. His large hand pressed tightly against his chest, filled with the relief of surviving a calamity and gratitude for a new life. To live, once, just to live, we had to give everything. And now, my people can not only eat their fill and dress warmly, but also stand here, cheering for a country of our own. Lord Charlotte, Lord Rimuru, you have given the orcs a second life. Korin, the Wolf King who usually carried a hint of gloom and aloofness, now uncharacteristically let down all his guard. The corners of his mouth uncontrollably turned upwards, revealing a genuine and extremely clear smile. A powerful leader, a bright future. My sense of smell, indeed, has never been wrong. Following Lord Rimuru and Lord Charlotte is the wisest choice for our tribe. The wolf pack behind him also sensed their king's mood, and one after another, they howled at the sky, joining the celebratory chorus. Even Hakuro, who was always aloof, stroked his long beard. Looking at the scene of renewal before him, couldn't help but let out a long, contented laugh. Ho ho ho, to witness such a prosperous era in my lifetime, and to see the rise of two benevolent kings, I have no regrets in this life. Gobta and the wolf cavalry excitedly hugged, jumped, and cheered. Benimaru clenched his fists, tears of pride shimmering in his crimson eyes. Shuna and Xian exchanged smiles, their eyes filled with joyful tears. Even the usually calm Soe had a distinct curve to his lips. King Gazel looked at the boiling scene, at the young ruler on the stage who, though slightly inexperienced, had already won the support of all his people, and finally showed a satisfied and relieved smile. Charlotte stood at the center of the clamor, feeling the vibrations from the earth beneath his feet. Looking at this miracle created by him and Rimuru together. His golden eyes also reflected this future, full of infinite possibilities, that belonged to them. The earth-shaking cheers had not entirely subsided. When the central plaza and its surrounding streets rapidly transformed from a solemn assembly ground into a venue for a grand, festive banquet. It was as if invisible hands were orchestrating the prelude to this feast. Countless long tables draped with pristine white tablecloths sprang up like mushrooms after rain, appearing instantly in every corner of the plaza thanks to the efficient cooperation of the goblins and the dwarfs, ingenious folding technology. Immediately following this, a transport team, composed of the pigmen tribe and some robust ogres operated like an efficient assembly line, continuously presenting mountains of exquisite delicacies onto the tables. The aroma of food permeating the air was richer and more layered than before, instantly awakening the most primal cravings in the bellies of all the monsters. This was not merely a banquet, It was a magnificent display of the Rimuru Tempest Federation's strength, cohesion, and diverse culture. Giant oak barrels sponsored by the Dwarf Kingdom, requiring 2 adult goblins to embrace, were personally uncorked by the dwarf craftsman. The rich, mellow aroma of ale and the sweet, fragrant scent of fruit wine immediately spread through the air. The golden liquid shimmered with an enticing luster under the lights. This bold fragrance instantly drew the big eaters like Kijin, who rushed over impatiently, scooping up the drinks with specially made giant wooden cups and letting out sighs of contentment. Demon Realm wheat bread, carefully cultivated by goblin and pigmen tribe farmers, with plump, large grains that faintly glowed with magic essence, was piled high into golden hillocks. Beside them were colorful, uniquely shaped magical fruits and vegetables. The faintly shimmering luminous mushrooms, the ice crystal fruits as clear as sapphires, the blazing peppers that burned with a faint flame yet weren't hot to the touch. These unprecedented products were themselves proof of the Rimuru Tempest Federation's richness and wonder. The main course area was even more dazzling and mouth-watering. A giant roasted whole ox that took 4 people to lift. Its skin roasted golden and crispy. The fat dripping onto the charcoal, making an enticing, sizzle, sound. Rock armor beast meat slow cooked for a day and a night with the dwarfs. Secret sauce, its texture so tender and flavorful it melted in the mouth. Fragrant dragon tail chicken skewers, sprinkled with mysterious spices from the depths of the forest. And sashimi, freshly caught this morning from nearby clear lakes and instantly preserved with ice magic to lock in its extreme sweetness. Thin as a cicada's wing, displaying beautiful patterns under the light. But the most popular section, drawing the longest queue, was the special cuisine area personally supervised by Shuna, which combined wisdom from another world with local top-tier ingredients. Shuna's secret flavor house. Here, there was a steaming Odin monster version. Its broth brewed from magic essence-rich beast bones and various magical plants. Clear yet profoundly flavorful. Inside, incredibly elastic monster meatballs, magic radishes that had absorbed the essence of the broth, and transparent magic mushrooms with a gummy texture were tumbling. There was also a tempura platter, which not only included tender river shrimp, but also magical petals and rare fungi harvested from the forest of spirits. They were fried until crispy on the outside and tender on the inside. The thin, wing-like batter locking in the ingredients, most authentic deliciousness. As the grand finale dessert, there was a tower of pancakes drizzled with Tempest's specialty 100-flower honey and tart tree berries. The pancakes were fluffy and soft, the honey sweet but not cloying. And the refreshing sourness of the berries perfectly balanced the sweetness, creating a symphony of flavors. Wu Mei! This heartfelt exclamation, accompanied by the satisfied sighs of the diners, once again became the most popular and direct phrase echoing throughout the venue. Neelam had long since transformed into an elusive golden whirlwind, darting between the various food stalls at astonishing speed. In her left hand, she clutched a handful of sizzling dragon-tailed chicken skewers. And in her right, a golden honey pancake larger than her pretty face. Her cheeks were stuffed, making her look like a hoarding hamster. Her mouth was smeared with shiny grease and syrup. And her clear blue eyes were narrowed into crescent moons due to the overwhelming happiness. Rimuru. Charlotte. This is delicious. That's also so yummy. Everything is Wu Mei. She declared loudly and indistinctly, her joy infecting everyone around her. Rimuru and Charlotte were quickly surrounded by enthusiastic cadres and citizens. People constantly came forward, raising their cups to them with respect and joy. Rimuru accepted every toast, though he only sipped lightly. His face glowed with a genuine blush of happiness as he looked at the prosperous scene he had personally created. His eyes were filled with satisfaction. Charlotte, while maintaining a somewhat lazy posture, leaning against a specially made soft seat, was also infected by the pure enthusiasm of the crowd and drank a few more cups of the special fruit wine than usual. His golden eyes, reflecting the flickering bonfires and the brilliant magical lights, appeared exceptionally bright and gentle, as if mirroring this paradise that belonged to them. Honglian and Kijin simply brought over a small barrel of strong liquor. Ignoring the cups, they drank straight from the barrel, their hearty laughter like thunder, making the nearby plates and cups rattle slightly, fully displaying the warriors' straightforwardness and the deep friendship between allies. Soe, as always, chose a relatively quiet corner, seeming to blend into the shadows. He held a cup of Shuna's special clear, refreshing sake. Silently observing the sea of joy. His perpetually tightly pressed lips now held a faint, almost imperceptible curve called satisfaction. Rigurd, though no longer weeping as he did during the founding declaration, wore a nearly foolish, radiant smile on his face. He stood tall with his now robust and sturdy physique. Like a patriarch, constantly urging his compatriots of various races to eat and drink, his voice loud and strong. It was as if he wanted to completely compensate for all the past suffering of the goblin race, the starvation and constant fear. With food and laughter in this very moment. Gerudo, along with the pigmen tribe members, first collectively bowed deeply toward Rimuru, expressing their profound gratitude for his grace of rebirth, before plunging into the feast. They devoured the food ravenously, as if to thoroughly consume this hard-won happiness of being alive, and enjoying life to the fullest. Integrating it into their blood. Hikuro sat at a table with dwarf King Gazel Dwargo, with treasured strong liquor brought by the dwarfs placed before the two elders. They sipped slowly, chatting happily. King Gazel recounted amusing anecdotes about forging, while Hikuro occasionally commented on the skills of the younger generation. Looking at the scene of renewal and harmonious coexistence among all races. They frequently let out ho-ha-ho laughter, filled with satisfaction and emotion. The human guests, Fizz, Yumu, and Baron Hector of Bloomond, were deeply moved by this pure, fervent, and barrier-free atmosphere. They gradually shed their social reserve and initial slight unease, truly integrating themselves into the celebration. With curiosity and astonishment, they tasted these never-before-seen dishes that were astonishingly delicious. They drank and chatted happily with the friendly monsters around them, despite their varied forms. They personally experienced the incredible inclusiveness, vitality, and unique charm of this emerging nation. The banquet continued from noon until night had completely fallen. Bonfires and countless magical lamps illuminated Lilim City as brightly as day, and the sounds of singing and laughter never ceased. Ogre bards played melodious lutes, goblins beat cheerful war drums, and the pigmen tribe hummed ancient harvest songs. Various sounds interwove into a vibrant symphony. As the grand feast drew to a close, the monsters and guests, full of food and drink, had satisfied flushes on their faces. The air still lingered with the aroma of fine food and a cheerful ambiance, when Rimuru and Charlotte exchanged a smile. A silent understanding flowed between the two. They stood up together. Rimuru clapped his hands. The crisp, penetrating sound, like a stone thrown into a calm lake, quickly drew everyone's attention. The clamor gradually subsided like a receding tide, and countless gazes focused on them. Everyone. He spoke loudly, his voice amplified by slight magic, clearly reaching every ear. His tone carried a childlike delight, as if sharing a secret. To celebrate this historic day, and to commemorate this moment we created together, we have one last gift to present to all of you, and to our Tempest. As soon as he finished speaking, the magical lamps throughout the city seemed to receive an invisible command. Some of them sequentially dimmed, leaving only essential lighting. This made the deep, velvet blue night sky appear even more profound and pure, like a massive canvas. Everyone's gaze involuntarily turned toward the starry sky, filled with curiosity and anticipation. Shoo! Boom! The first cluster of fireworks, trailing a dazzling tail flame like a reverse shooting star, sliced through the silence and soared upward with great effort. Exploding violently the instant it reached its apex. It transformed into a giant, magnificent, blue and gold peony, perfectly replicating the colors of the Tempest national flag. Blossoming brilliantly in the night sky, instantly illuminating the darkness. It was met with a surging tide of cheers and gasps of astonishment from the ground. This seemed to be the signal. Immediately after, various styles of magical fireworks, competing in splendor, shot into the sky. They used the sky as their broadest canvas, freely unleashing the magic of light and color. There were silver light wheels meticulously designed by goblin craftsmen, rotating like countless precise gears, symbolizing technology and order. There were crimson flowers favored by the ogres, blossoming in layers like flaming lotuses, carrying a scorching aura, showcasing strength and passion. And there was the rain of harvest, beloved by the pigmen tribe, scattering golden light points like plump wheat stalks across the sky, carrying prayers for wealth and peace. Each ingeniously crafted firework that bloomed was accompanied by proud and fervent cheers and admiration from the corresponding race on the ground. A powerful sense of belonging and pride surged in every heart. The night sky was stained with vibrant colors, and the light and shadows shifted unpredictably. The brilliant colors illuminated every upturned face. Whether it was the elderly goblins with their wrinkles smoothed out, the strong ogres with determined eyes, the solemn direwolves, or the simple smiling pigmen tribe, or even the human guests who still showed a hint of surprise. At this moment, their eyes all sparkled with the same astonishment, joy, and longing for a beautiful future. Milam excitedly pointed at the constantly shifting light and shadow in the sky, shouting and yelling. Her clear blue eyes were brighter than the fireworks. She jumped up and down, eager to fly up immediately to see clearly and touch those spectacular light blossoms with her own hands. Just as the fireworks display reached its climax, with countless points of light and colors adorning the night sky like an inverted galaxy, making it dreamlike and illusory. A special firework, noticeably larger, more ancient and substantial in design, and entirely enveloped in powerful, stable magic essence, ascended slowly and steadily to the highest point of the firmament, under everyone's gaze. Like a crowned monarch. Then, it bloomed, silently. There was no deafening boom, nor an overly flashy surge of colors. It simply transformed into a vast, soft, and stable blue curtain of light, flowing like an aurora, spanning the horizon, as if draping the night sky in a layer of ethereal gauze. Subsequently, in the center of that deep, tranquil blue light curtain, using the purest, most dazzling golden light, a line of massive, clear text, seemingly imbued with magic and will, was formed stroke by stroke, clearly and powerfully. It was branded onto the retina of every upward-gazing observer, and even more so, branded onto their hearts. Our home, our future. At this moment, all sound ceased. Time seemed to freeze. All the monsters gazing at the sky, whether the elderly goblins who had endured hardships and witnessed the rebirth of their tribe, the ogres who inherited great power and bore the responsibility of guardianship, the goblins and direwolves who walked with the wind and were fiercely loyal, or the pigmen tribe who once struggled to survive and now lived in peace and contentment. They stared at the words seemingly written by stars and forged by hope, chewing on that maxim that struck the deepest core of their hearts. A powerful, deep, and fervent emotion, like magma, surged and boiled in their chests, finally breaking through all defenses. Home, the paradise they had built brick by brick with their own hands, watered with sweat and blood, and vowed to protect until death. Future, the tomorrow they would personally forge, filled with infinite possibilities and bright hope. After a brief, almost sacred silence, a roar of sound, stronger, more genuine, and more soul-stirring than all the previous cheers combined, erupted like a volcano that had accumulated power for a millennium, soaring up from every corner of Lilim City. Many monsters could no longer suppress their inner excitement. Tears streamed down their faces as they tightly embraced their companions, regardless of race. They shouted that phrase over and over again, using all their strength, shouting Rimuru's and Charlotte's names. The sound waves rolled and rushed toward the heavens, as if even the stars were moved. Rimuru looked at Charlotte, who was also gazing up at the starry sky beside him. The brilliant firework light danced on his blue hair. He spoke softly, his voice filled with immense satisfaction and determination. This is what we want to protect, isn't it? These smiles, this hope. Charlotte withdrew his gaze and turned to Rimuru. His golden eyes, illuminated by the final glow of the night sky, appeared exceptionally bright and profound, as if he had already foreseen the distant future. He nodded slightly, a faint but genuine curve gracing his lips, and responded concisely and powerfully. Yes, this is our answer. The miracle they had jointly created beneath this starry sky was the best answer. Late at night, the central conference room of the administrative building was lit up as bright as day by dozens of lamps embedded with luminous magic crystal stones. Around the massive round table, all the core executives of the Rimuru Tempest Federation, along with their most important guests, gathered. The festive atmosphere of the celebration still lingered faintly in the air, but it was overshadowed by a more serious and focused resolve to face reality and plan for the future. Rimuru and Charlotte Tempest sat at the head of the table, their expressions calm as their gazes swept over everyone present. First and foremost, Rimuru began, his voice amplified by a faint magic, reaching everyone's ears clearly. It carried his usual gentleness, yet also an undeniable decisiveness. On behalf of Tempest, I once again sincerely thank King Gazel, Mr. Fizz, Yumu, and all the envoys who have traveled so far. Thank you for witnessing this historic moment with us and for discussing our future together now. After a brief opening, the meeting quickly moved to the main agenda. First, Rigurd, Benimaru, Shuna, and others briefly reported on various data from the celebration, material consumption, security summaries, and preliminary plans for subsequent internal affairs. Everything proceeded within an efficient and orderly framework, demonstrating that this nascent state apparatus had begun to operate steadily. Fizz, the branch chief of the Free Guild, was the first to rise. Beside him, a luxuriously dressed, elegant middle-aged man also stood up. Lord Rimuru, Lord Charlotte Tempest. Fizz said with a solemn tone. I, Fizz, on behalf of the Bloomin Kingdom's Free Guild branch. And this gentleman beside me, Baron Hector of the Kingdom. Extend our most sincere greetings to the Rimuru Tempest Federation of Monsters. Authorized by His Majesty our King, we formally announce that the Bloomin Kingdom recognizes your nation's independent sovereign status and hopes to establish permanent friendly diplomatic relations with your country, gradually opening up trade, cultural, and technological exchanges. Baron Hector bowed slightly. Although his posture was somewhat conservative, his eyes revealed an acknowledgement of the monster nation's strength and an anticipation for future cooperation. Thank you very much for the trust of the Bloomin Kingdom. Rimuru responded with a smile and a nod. Immediately after, Yumu also stood up. Beside him was an envoy with a slightly pale complexion. His chin slightly raised, dressed in the court attire of the Pharmas Kingdom. Lord Rimuru, Yumu's tone carried his characteristic sincerity. I, Yumu, and the Pharmas Kingdom's special envoy, Sir Vincent, have been dispatched here. The Pharmas Kingdom also recognizes your nation, and wishes to establish preliminary diplomatic ties with your country. His introduction was somewhat brief, as if deliberately downplaying something. Sir Vincent merely gave a perfunctory nod, his eyes revealing a hint of barely concealed scrutiny and arrogance. He spoke unhurriedly, his tone carrying the drawn-out mannerisms characteristic of nobility. The vitality of the Rimuru Tempest Federation is indeed impressive. Our nation looks forward to beneficial interactions with your esteemed party, befitting our respective statuses. His words, though seemingly polite, conveyed a sense of aloofness and condescension, as if establishing relations with monsters was a favor. Many of the executives present, especially Gurren and Xian, imperceptibly furrowed their brows. Charlotte Tempest's golden eyes subtly swept over Vincent. She said nothing, but had noted his attitude. Rimuru, however, seemed completely oblivious, maintaining his smile. We also thank the Pharmas Kingdom for their recognition and look forward to future exchanges. Just as the routine diplomatic procedures seemed to be drawing to a close, Rimuru changed the topic, dropping a bombshell proposal. To facilitate trade and personnel exchange between us and the Western nations, especially with our allies the Bloomin Kingdom and the Dwarf Kingdom, as well as other potentially friendly forces. Rimuru's voice was clear and firm. I propose that Tempest lead, fund, staff, and exert effort to construct a safe and efficient road connecting the Rimuru Great Forest to the core regions of the Western nations. The Tempest Commercial Highway. At these words, the conference room fell silent instantly, so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Aside from Charlotte Tempest and a very few core members who knew about this beforehand, including Fizz and Yumu. Even the arrogant Sir Vincent revealed expressions of incredulous shock. Building a highway across a forest infested with monsters and complex terrain. What an enormous amount of manpower, material resources, and technology would that require? More importantly, how could its safety be guaranteed? Rimuru seemed to see through their doubts and continued, we will use magic and the Dwarf Brothers' technology for reinforcement and optimization, establishing fixed waystations and supply points. And most crucially, he paused, his tone deepening, I, Rimuru Tempest, in the name of the Supreme Leader of the Rimuru Tempest Federation, pledge To dispatch our nation's elite forces to patrol and clear out threats. Ensuring that the lives and property of all legal merchants and personnel traveling this road will be protected by the Rimuru Tempest Federation. What? King Gazel was the first to exclaim, his massive body leaning forward in excitement. My little brother Rimuru. Do you know what this means? This is equivalent to permanently tying a portion of your entire nation's military strength to a single road. Assuming almost infinite security responsibilities. This promise is too heavy. Fizz also gasped. As the branch chief of the Free Guild. He knew too well the value of a safe trade route and the immense risks and investments it entailed. Lord Rimuru, this is a magnificent feat that could change the trade landscape of the Western continent. But the cost. Even Sir Vincent shed his arrogance, his eyes flickering. Clearly calculating the potential benefits and threats this highway could bring to Farmus. Of course, Charlotte Tempest's clear, cold voice sounded at the opportune moment, pulling everyone back from their shock. Such a huge investment and responsibility cannot be entirely without charge. Once the highway is completed, all merchant caravans using this road will need to pay a certain road usage tax and security guarantee tax to our nation, based on the value and scale of their goods. This will be the primary source of funding for our nation to maintain the highway's operation and security forces. Specific tax rates and detailed rules can be discussed in detail later, but the principle is fairness and sustainability. He added, we provide safety and convenience, merchants pay reasonable fees. And all nations enjoy the prosperity brought by smooth trade. This will be an artery flowing with wealth and opportunity. The meeting room erupted in heated discussion. King Gazel stroked his beard, his eyes gleaming, and began to seriously weigh the enormous strategic benefits and commercial opportunities the Dwarf Kingdom could gain from this road. Fizz and Baron Hector exchanged opinions in low voices, their excitement barely contained. Yumu, being more pragmatic, began to consider the practical difficulties that might arise during implementation. Sir Vincent remained silent, but his tightly pressed lips indicated that his mind was far from calm. The subsequent discussions went deeper, with various scenarios being simulated. A preliminary cooperation framework for the commercial highway plan was drafted, with the Rimuru Tempest Federation leading construction and security. All parties assisting with some materials and technical support, and the Monster Nation collecting core taxes after completion. When the meeting finally concluded, the sky outside was nearing dawn. This half-night meeting not only established formal diplomatic relations between the Rimuru Tempest Federation and multiple factions, but also finalized a grand plan capable of influencing the economic landscape of the continent. The next morning, the festive atmosphere of the celebration had not completely dissipated, but Lilim City gradually returned to its usual order and bustle. Most of the national delegations and representatives departed in the morning light, leaving sequentially via teleportation arrays or traditional means of transport. Dwarf King Gazel Dwargo had also reorganized his Sky Knights and was preparing to return to his kingdom. Just as he was about to embark on his journey home, he was invited by Rimuru and Charlotte Tempest to a secluded and elegant courtyard behind the administrative building. The morning light filtered through sparse branches and leaves, casting dappled shadows on the stone table. The atmosphere was not like the grand revelry of yesterday, but rather carried a solemn tranquility. Gazel, Rimuru began first, his tone sincere. Before you leave, there's something we feel we must tell you personally. Gazel raised his rugged eyebrows, crossing his arms. His gaze sweeping over Rimuru and the silently standing Charlotte Tempest, as if he had already anticipated something. Oh. For you two to be so solemn, it must not be a small matter. Speak, old man is listening. Rimuru and Charlotte Tempest exchanged glances, then Rimuru took a deep breath and said. It's about Charlotte Tempest's identity. He has declared himself a demon lord. After speaking, Rimuru looked at Gazel with a hint of nervousness, awaiting his reaction. After all, the title, Demon Lord, usually represented disaster and destruction to most living beings. However, the expected shock or even questioning did not occur. King Gazel merely let out a deep, knowing chuckle. He raised a hand to stroke his gnarled beard. His gaze sharply fixed on Charlotte Tempest, as if able to pierce through appearances and see the essence. HMPH, as expected. Gazel's voice was surprisingly calm. From the first time I met this lad, I sensed that the power within him was extraordinary. That bottomless magic essence and unique quality are definitely not something ordinary monsters could possess. Coupled with his equal, even familiar, attitude towards the destroyer, Milam Nava. If he is a demon lord, I find it to be the most reasonable explanation. His reaction was completely unexpected by Rimuru and Charlotte Tempest, yet entirely logical. This seasoned dwarf king possessed a keen insight that belied his outward appearance. Gazel turned his gaze back to Rimuru, his tone becoming exceptionally serious and profound. Rimuru, he said, you and I are already allies. What a dwarf decides, and whom he recognizes, will never waver easily. I trust your judgment, and even more, I trust your philosophy for governing this nation. He paused, his voice as firm as bedrock. Since I acknowledge you, then naturally, I will also acknowledge the chosen friend who stands by your side. Even if he becomes a demon lord, I believe. He will not be the type to indiscriminately slaughter innocents or act wantonly. Otherwise, you, Rimuru, would be the first to object, wouldn't you? Ha ha ha. He let out a hearty and uninhibited laugh, filled with trust and acceptance for the two young rulers. After laughing, King Gazel clapped Rimuru heartily on the shoulder, then nodded to Charlotte Tempest. Demon Lord Banquet. Although this old man cannot accompany you, remember that the dwarf kingdom will always be your solid backing if you encounter trouble. All right, the words have been spoken, it's time for this old man to return. There's a pile of matters waiting to be handled back home. With that, the magnificent dwarf king did not linger, turning and striding away with firm steps. His red cape flapping in the morning breeze. Watching his retreating figure, a weight lifted from Rimuru's heart, and he softly said to Charlotte Tempest. See, I told you Brother Gazel would understand. A faint glimmer flickered in Charlotte Tempest's golden eyes, and he softly nodded, watching the dwarf king's figure disappear at the end of the corridor, and murmured, a reliable ally. The courtyard returned to silence once more. At high noon, the dazzling sunlight poured unreservedly onto the gigantic arena north of Lilam City. This magnificent structure, urgently constructed for this grand event, adopted a classic architectural style. The massive circular venue was built from solid magic-infused stone, surrounded by towering, tiered circular stands capable of holding 100,000 spectators. At this moment, the stands were packed, a dense sea of people, their clamor echoing like a tsunami throughout the stadium. Monsters of various races, the strong ogres, agile goblins, sturdy orcs, and mighty mad storm-fang wolves. As well as some human guests who had yet to depart, all wore expressions of excitement and anticipation. The air was thick with the desire for passion and battle, to celebrate the birth of the nation. To showcase the strength and demeanor of their respective races, and even more so for the supreme reward that could change destinies. The first Tempest martial arts tournament was about to begin here. Just as the atmosphere was about to reach its peak. A petite but incredibly dazzling figure, accompanied by a quick magical glow, appeared as if by teleportation on the highest commentary platform in the center of the arena. Ladies and gentlemen, all of Tempest's dearest citizens and esteemed guests. Good afternoon, everyone. A piercing, bright voice, sweet yet undeniably passionate, instantly cut through all the noise via the magical amplification devices spread throughout the venue, clearly reaching every spectator's ear. All eyes immediately focused on the commentary platform. Standing there was an ogre girl with a delicate, doll-like face. Liliana. She had long pink hair tied into lively twin pigtails, and her matching eyes sparkled with excitement. Her extremely alluring figure was clad in a meticulously designed host outfit. A form-fitting pink short shirt on top, outlining breathtaking curves, and a matching ultra-short skirt below. Most eye-catching, however, was a pure black full-body stocking that started from her cute toes and extended upwards, tightly encasing her slender legs, rounded hips, and even her most private triangular area without a single seam. The extreme black contrasted sharply with her fair skin and pink attire, exuding a fatal charm that blended innocence with romances. I'm the exclusive commentator for this martial arts tournament, your cutest Liliana Tilda. She winked playfully, eliciting a burst of whistles and cheers from the stands. After long preparations and an exciting founding ceremony, we finally welcome this historic moment. The first Tempest martial arts tournament is now officially open. She raised her arm high, her voice rising again, igniting the passion of the entire audience, and thunderous applause and roars lingered for a long time. Once the clamor subsided, Liliana began to explain the rules in her distinctive voice. I'm sure everyone already knows that this tournament adopts the most exciting and fairest system, a completely random match-up elimination. 530 warriors from the ogre, goblin, and orc tribes will engage in the fiercest competition on this sacred arena for glory and dreams. Her words, accompanied by the rapidly scrolling match list on the magical screen, made the hearts of all participants and spectators race. However, she changed her tone, raising a finger. To ensure the balance and spectacle of the competition, we have several recognized, monster-level beings, such as Lord Korin, Lord Gurren, and Lord Gerudo, who have voluntarily opted not to compete. Of course, our dearest Lord Milam is strictly forbidden from participating. She made a playful, forbidden gesture, drawing knowing laughter from the audience. But Liliana's voice became captivating again. This certainly doesn't mean the competition will lack excitement. Lord Benimaru, Lord Xian, Lord Soe of the Ogre race, Captain Rigard, the pride of the Goblin race, young Master Krut, the hope of the Orc race, and many other powerhouses will all be fighting with all their might. Moreover, according to special rules, our Goblin Wolf Cavalry will fight alongside their closest companions, the Mad Storm Fang Wolves, as a single combat unit. Look forward to their harmonious cooperation. She paused briefly to let the information sink in, then, with a seductive tone, dropped the bombshell. And the ultimate victor, the one person standing at the pinnacle of all warriors, will receive the supreme right, jointly promised by Lord Rimuru and Lord Charlotte, to have any one wish granted. Yes, any request. As long as you win, no matter what it is, both lords will make it come true for you. Oh. This final announcement, like a spark thrown into boiling oil, completely ignited the last shred of sanity in the audience, and the fervent cheers almost tore off the arena's dome. Then, without further ado, Liliana waved her small hand, pointing to the multiple prepared battlegrounds below. Let's immediately begin the fierce competition of the first day. Which warriors will be the first to stand out? Let us wait and see. Let the games begin. In the exclusive VIP Supreme Guest Viewing area, Rimuru looked at the bustling arena below and couldn't help but exclaim. Everyone is full of drive. It's amazing to work so hard for a single goal. Beside him, Charlotte yawned lazily, her golden eyes half closed, as if the grand spectacle before her was less appealing than a ray of sunlight. The rules sound fair enough. I hope to see some interesting matches soon. And sitting between them, Milam, dangling her small legs, had her cheeks puffed out, her pink twin pigtails seemingly bristling with anger. HMPH. Why can't I go up there? I want to fight too. I want that. Any request, too. Rimuru, you stingy. She waved her small fists, expressing strong dissatisfaction. At this moment, Liliana on the commentary platform once again attracted everyone's attention. Dear audience. She leaned forward slightly, a movement that made her full bust curve more prominent under the tight shirt, while the breathtaking curve of her waist and hips was fully revealed under the black full-body stocking. Despite her cute, loli-like face, she possessed such a hot, mature body. This contrast formed a stunning sight. Because there are too many matches happening simultaneously, I only have one pair of eyes. So, next, I, Liliana, will choose the most exciting battles to provide live commentary. I guarantee you won't miss any of the passion and excitement. As she spoke, the list on the magic screen quickly froze. First match. Orc Geld vs Goblin Gobuin. First, let's turn our attention to the third arena. Liliana's vibrant voice rang out. The contenders are Geld from the Orc tribe, and Gobuin from the Goblin tribe. Geld uses a formidable giant warhammer, while Gobuin has chosen a flexible longsword. This will be a contest of strength versus skill. On the field, Geld, a tall, sturdy orc warrior with light brown skin, scratched the back of his head sheepishly and said to the slender, wary Gobuin before him. Please go easy on me. I'll hold back. Gobuin didn't reply, his eyes narrowing. relying on the goblin's excellent agility. He swiftly approached with a blur of motion, his longsword darting like a venomous snake towards Geld's shoulder, attempting to win with speed. However, Geld, seemingly clumsy, was not slow to react. He let out a low growl, not even using much magic essence, but simply relying on the orc's natural monstrous strength. Swinging his massive warhammer like a wooden club in a simple upward strike. Clang! A deafening metallic crash resounded. Gabuin felt an irresistible force surge from his sword. His tiger's mouth instantly split, and the longsword flew from his grasp, spinning several times in the air before sticking into the ground. He himself was sent tumbling backward several times by the force before he managed to stop, his face filled with disbelief. The outcome is decided, Liliana announced promptly. Geld wins with an overwhelming display of strength, a single-hit victory. Let's cheer for him. Surprisingly, Geld showed no arrogance after winning. He quickly put down his warhammer and trotted over to the still dizzy Gabuin. Extending his large hand to help him up, apologizing sheepishly, "Sorry, I didn't control my strength well. Are you alright?" Gabuin looked at the sincere expression of his opponent, and his sense of frustration dissipated considerably. He shook his head. No, I'm fine. You're just too strong." This heartwarming scene earned the audience's benevolent applause and fully demonstrated the generally gentle and honest nature of the orc tribe. Second match. Goblin Wolf Cavalry Rigurd and Yafu vs Ogre Washin. Next up is a highly anticipated team battle. Liliana's voice was filled with excitement. Featuring Captain Rigurd of the Goblin Wolf Cavalry Patrol. And his loyal partner Yafu, against the Ogre Warrior Washin. How will the Wolf Cavalry's mobility be showcased? Let's wait and see. On the field, Rigurd rode on his partner Yafu. A nimble mad storm fang wolf with sharp eyes, holding a spear, his expression solemn. His opponent, Washin, was an ogre youth wielding dual swords, his gaze fierce. Begin. With an invisible command, Yafu pushed off with all four limbs, darting out like a silver lightning bolt, incredibly fast, stirring up a gust of wind. Washin's pupils contracted. He swung his dual swords, unleashing several sword slashes to try and block their path. But Rigurd and Yafu were in perfect sync, their coordination flawless. Yafu executed a nimble Z-shaped sprint, skillfully evading all attacks and instantly closing the distance. Charge. Rigurd seized the opportunity, his spear thrusting out like a venomous dragon emerging from its lair, aiming straight for Washin's midsection. Washin reacted swiftly, crossing his dual swords in front of his chest, parrying the spear with a resounding clang. However, the Wolf Cavalry's impact force far exceeded his imagination. And he was pushed back several meters by the immense power, leaving clear marks on the ground. Giving him no time to catch his breath, Yafu used his speed advantage to continuously circle and pounce on Washin. While Rigurd's spear, like a persistent shadow, attacked from various tricky angles. Though Washin resisted fiercely, his dual swords weaving an impenetrable defense, his stamina and magic essence rapidly depleted under the opponent's flawless speed and coordination. And gradually, several bloodstains appeared on his body from spear slashes. He's in a tough fight. Washin is completely suppressed by Captain Rigurd's rhythm. Liliana narrated, the Wolf Cavalry's strategy is to maximize speed and coordinated combat. Finally, after a perfect feint, Rigurd seized a momentary gap in Washin's defense. And his spear precisely stopped before his throat. The winners are Rigurd and Yafu. Liliana announced loudly. Rigurd retracted his spear and gave a knight's bow to the slightly panting Washin, who, though resigned, respectfully returned the gesture. This battle fully demonstrated that the Goblin Wolf Cavalry did not rely on brute force, but rather on extreme speed and synchronized tactics to defeat their opponents. Third match. Ogre Gangu vs Goblin Gobuzu. Next, let's witness the power of the ogre race. Liliana switched the view to another arena. Featuring Gangu, who just finished observing, wielding a katana, against Gobuzu from the Goblin tribe. Gangu was a stern-faced ogre. He slowly drew the katana from his waist, its blade glinting with cold light. His opponent, Gobuzu, used a shield and a short axe, adopting a tight defensive stance. Match start. Gobuzu knew the terrifying strength of the ogre race and dared not attack rashly, focusing all his energy on shield defense. However, Gangu merely took a cold step forward, not even using any fancy moves, but simply tensing his arm muscles, infusing magic essence into his katana. And then, with the purest, most direct vertical slash, he brought it down forcefully onto the shield. Boom! Accompanied by a loud crash and flying sparks. Gobuzu, shield and all, was sent flying backward by this mountain-splitting blow, and his shield showed clear cracks. He fell heavily to the ground, unable to get up for a while. An overwhelming victory! Liliana exclaimed. Gangu has shown us the absolute strength advantage of the ogre race. Against absolute power, skill and defense seem so pale. Gangu expressionlessly sheathed his katana, as if he had done something insignificant, then turned and left the arena, leaving the audience deeply shaken by his formidable strength. The first day's matches continued amidst such varied and exciting duels. Just as the aftershocks of Rigurd's thrilling duel with Steelbone had yet to fully subside, another familiar figure leapt into an adjacent arena, instantly drawing a multitude of gazes. Wahahaha! It's finally my turn to shine. Gobta stood in the center of the arena, hands on his hips, chin held high, his face practically screaming. He was so carried away that it was as if the championship trophy was already in his pocket. He even winked at Rimuru and the others in the VIP box. In the VIP box, Rimuru sighed and rubbed his forehead. This guy, still the same as ever. Charlotte Tempest simply closed his eyes, not bothering to watch the foolish display. Only Hakuro stroked his beard, letting out a deep and meaningful laugh. Ho ho ho. Lad, that's a good stance. If you dare to disgrace this old man, your special training back home will be doubled. That laughter sent an inexplicable shiver down Gobta's spine in the arena, and his arrogant demeanor immediately reined in a bit. At the commentary desk, Liliana also noticed this celebrity. Oh my Tilda. Next up is Captain Gobta of our goblin tribe. As everyone knows, Captain Gobta is a powerful wolf cavalry commander, so his cooperation with his partner, Little Gray, must be, huh. Her words abruptly stopped. Because everyone noticed that Gobta had walked onto the arena alone, his contracted wolf partner, Little Gray, was not with him. Contestant Gobta actually chose to fight alone. But his opponent is the ogre contestant, Kazuyuki, a warrior renowned for his lightning-fast speed. This is completely unexpected. But his opponent is the ogre contestant, Kazuyuki, a warrior renowned for his lightning-fast speed. This is completely unexpected. The match begins. Kazuyuki's figure blurred, as if melting into the airflow. Charging straight towards Gobta at an extremely high speed, his long blade tracing a sharp arc. However, Gobta's reaction was even more astonishing. Take this. Shadow movement. His figure suddenly blurred, instantly vanishing from his spot as if merging with shadows, easily evading Kazuyuki's swift assault. The next moment, he appeared like a ghost behind Kazuyuki's side, two inconspicuous daggers somehow appearing in his hands. I'm over here. Kazuyuki's heart jolted, and he quickly turned to block. But Gobta's speed was beyond imagination, he didn't clash head-on with the stronger Kazuyuki. Instead, relying on his ghostly movements and superior mobility, he clung to Kazuyuki like a persistent shadow. The daggers transformed into two deadly silver lights, specifically targeting gaps in his defense and joints. The clashing of weapons. Kazuyuki's boasted speed was completely outmatched by Gobta's purer and swifter shadow movement. He felt like he was fighting a real shadow, constantly on the defensive, unable to catch Gobta's true form. He felt like he was fighting a real shadow, constantly on the defensive, unable to catch Gobta's true form. In just a few breaths, Gobta seized an opening when Kazuyuki was unable to recover his breath. And the blunt side of his dagger precisely struck Kazuyuki's wrist. Ah! Kazuyuki grunted in pain, his long blade slipping from his grasp. Before he could react, the tip of the other dagger was already lightly pressed against his throat. Winner! Winner! Gobta! Liliana's voice was tinged with disbelief and surprise. Unbelievable. Contestant Gobta, without the aid of his wolf partner, relying solely on his own speed and skill, so cleanly defeated the powerful ogre warrior. What kind of special training did he undergo? Gobta triumphantly retracted his dagger, extending a hand to pull up the astonished Kazuyuki, not forgetting to boast. You're too kind. I'm the man who's going to win the championship. In the subsequent matches, although there were fierce clashes and brilliant displays of skill, they all seemed somewhat dull in comparison to Gobta's stunning performance. Warriors from the Ogre, Goblin Wolf Cavalry, and Pigmen tribe each had their wins and losses, showcasing the characteristics and strengths of their respective races. The afterglow of the setting sun filled the arena, and the first day's schedule concluded. More than half of the participants, a total of over 260 warriors, sadly exited the brutal elimination rounds. The remaining 200-plus contestants would face even tougher challenges on the second day. The audience left, still buzzing, discussing the day's highlights and filled with even greater anticipation for tomorrow's matches. The next day, the atmosphere in the arena was even more fervent and solemn than on the first day. All 100,000 seats were filled, and the air was thick with palpable anticipation and tension. Today's competition format was even more brutal, continuous battles in the morning, winners advancing, losers eliminated, until the top 8 were decided. In the afternoon, the final 4 would be determined. Every match was a do-or-die struggle, losers were immediately out, with no chance of return. At the commentary desk, Liliana was still full of energy, her pink twin tails swaying gently with her impassioned commentary. Her tight short shirt and black full-body stockings, which hugged her exquisite curves, shimmered under the magic lights, forming a beautiful sight in this brutal arena. Dear audience members, welcome back to the second day of the Tempest Martial Arts Tournament. Her high-pitched voice ignited the enthusiasm of the entire venue. After yesterday's fierce competition, over 200 warriors emerged victorious. And today, they will face even more severe tests. Every match will be a peak showdown, and every victory or defeat will be thrilling. On the magic light screen, the match list scrolled rapidly and then froze. And today's first highlight match is enough to get everyone's blood boiling. Liliana excitedly waved her small fists. Let's welcome both contestants to the arena. First, the captain of the Goblin Wolf Cavalry Patrol, who yesterday, with unparalleled speed and seamless coordination, easily defeated a formidable opponent, Rigurd, and his loyal and powerful partner, Yafu. Rigurd, riding on Yafu's back, entered the arena with a composed expression. He gently patted Yafu's neck, and his partner responded with a low growl, sharp wolf eyes fixed on the opponent across the field. Yesterday's battle had already proven the superiority of wolf cavalry tactics to everyone. And his opponent. Liliana's voice rose again. It's the powerful ogre swordsman who, with absolute strength, secured victory with a single blow yesterday, Steelbone. Steelbone strode into the arena with heavy steps, his gleaming katana already unsheathed and casually resting on his shoulder. His stern face showed no emotion, only a rock-solid determination and powerful confidence in his eyes. Yesterday's devastating blow had already etched the impression of invincible strength into the minds of many spectators. The pinnacle of speed and coordination vs the crushing force of absolute power. Will Captain Rigurd's tactics prevail, or is contestant Steelbone's strength unmatched? The outcome of this clash of spear and shield is unpredictable. As Liliana whipped up the atmosphere, in a corner of the audience stands a fat man dressed in luxurious human merchant attire, yet with unusually shrewd eyes, was loudly hawking with a few assistants, a magic light board beside him clearly displaying the odds. Bets are open. Bets are open. Ogre Steelbone wins, odds 1 to 1.5. Goblin Rigurd wins, odds 1 to 3. Place your bets now, this is a rare opportunity. Goblin Rigurd wins, odds 1 to 3. Place your bets now, this is a rare opportunity. Evidently, most of the audience was intimidated by Steelbone's terrifying strength displayed yesterday, and they all placed their bets on him. The betting amount for Steelbone's victory on the light board surged rapidly, bringing a satisfied smile to the cunning merchant's face. Some who had bet on Steelbone even cheered loudly for him, as if victory was already in their grasp. In the VIP box, Rimuru looked slightly worried. Steelbone's strength is too great, can Rigurd and his partner truly contend with him head-on? Charlotte Tempest remained languid, but his eyes opened slightly into a slit. Strength isn't everything. Keep watching. Milam Nava excitedly swung her legs. Fight. Fight quickly. On the field, the referee's arm swung down. Match. Begin. Yafu, skirmishing tactics. Rigurd shouted lowly, without the slightest hesitation. Yafu's four limbs burst with power, transforming into a silver streak of light, instantly moving horizontally, never staying in a straight line with Steelbone. HMPH, same old trick. Steelbone snorted. He had observed the matches at length yesterday and had already figured out Rigurd's general tactics. He didn't blindly pursue but spread his feet slightly, lowered his center of gravity, and held his katana vertically in front of him, adopting a defensive counter stance as steady as a mountain. His gaze, like a hawk's, locked onto the rapidly moving wolf and rider. A powerful aura emanated from him, like a reef unmoving despite the crashing waves. Rigurd's heart tightened. His opponent was clearly well prepared. He directed Yafu to constantly change direction, left and right, his long spear poised, searching for even the slightest opening. Whoosh! Rigurd seized the moment of inertia as Steelbone's gaze followed their movement, suddenly thrusting his spear straight for Steelbone's ribs. This thrust was fast, precise, and fierce, imbued with spiraling energy. However, Steelbone's reaction was astonishingly quick. He appeared motionless, yet all his muscles were in a state of high alert. With a flick of his wrist, his katana rotated from vertical to horizontal, precisely striking the spear tip with its flat side. Clang! A loud bang, sparks flying. Rigurd felt a tremendous force transmit through the spear shaft, his arm tingling. If he hadn't dispersed the force in time, the long spear would have almost flown from his grasp. Steelbone, however, merely swayed slightly, deflecting the impact. The strength gap is too wide. Liliana exclaimed. Captain Rigurd's assault was easily blocked by contestant Steelbone. Failing to land a hit, Rigurd didn't linger in battle. He immediately used the impact force and Yafu's agility to retreat, again creating distance and continuing his skirmishing. Steelbone frowned slightly. His opponent's slipperiness was beyond expectation. He realized that passive defense would only continuously drain his spirit and stamina, so he had to actively create opportunities. He stopped holding his ground and began to advance, pressuring Rigurd's movement space with a speed that belied his massive physique. With every step, the ground trembled slightly, and a powerful sense of oppression surged towards Rigurd like a tide. With every step, the ground trembled slightly, and a powerful sense of oppression surged towards Rigurd like a tide. Rigurd's pressure immediately doubled. Steelbone's movements blocked many of his good angles of attack, forcing him to constantly retreat towards the edge of the arena. Yafu let out a low growl, clearly sensing the threat as well. Cannot retreat. Rigurd's eyes sharpened. Yafu, headwind assault. Yafu let out a long howl, magic essence surging, its speed suddenly increasing another notch. It was no longer circling, but transformed into a straight silver arrow, charging head-on against Steelbone's oppressive aura. At the same time, Rigurd poured all his magic essence into his long spear, the spear tip vibrating and humming as it thrust straight for Steelbone's chest. It was the same move that defeated Washin yesterday, but its power and speed were incomparable. Excellent. Steelbone's eyes gleamed. He had been waiting for the moment his opponent was forced into a head-on confrontation. He roared, his muscles bulging, terrifying magic essence condensing on his katana. The katana seemed to instantly become several times heavier. And with the momentum of splitting mountains and an unyielding forward drive, he met the thrusting spear with a pure, brutal vertical cleave. Mad bone slash. Before the blade even arrived, the incomparably sharp blade wind had already stifled Rigurd's breath and stung his skin. Everyone held their breath, as if the next moment they would witness the tragic scene of the spear breaking and both man and wolf being injured. Just at this critical juncture, a flicker of resolve and cunning flashed in Rigurd's eyes. Now! Yafu, shadow leap. Just an instant before the blade and spear were about to collide, the shadows beneath the 4 feet of the rushing Yafu suddenly expanded. Its figure seemed to blur for a moment, not charging straight ahead, but rather, in a manner defying physical common sense. Like stepping on shadows, it refracted sideways in an extremely short, lightning-fast shift. This was not Gobta's long-distance shadow movement, but a hidden technique developed by Rigurd and Yafu during their long patrols and battles. Specifically for wolf cavalry charge tactics. Used to make micro-adjustments to the charge trajectory at the last moment. And to evade fatal counterattacks, shadow leap. Steelbone's full power, determined strike almost grazed Yafu's fur and Rigurd's spear shaft as it cleaved down. The terrifying blade energy cut a bottomless crack into the solid ground. The terrifying blade energy cut a bottomless crack into the solid ground. What? Steelbone experienced an extremely brief, almost imperceptible moment of stiffness due to his power missing its target. And this was the opportunity Rigurd had gambled everything for. In the instant Yafu completed its shadow leap, its body not yet fully stable, and Steelbone's old strength having just passed while new strength had yet to emerge. Rigurd, utilizing the remaining momentum of the charge and his core abdominal strength, in an almost twisted posture, suddenly changed his straight thrusting spear into a horizontal sweep. Woo! The spear shaft, with a piercing whoosh, precisely caught Steelbone's unguarded side waist, which was exposed from his cleave. Bang! A dull thud. Steelbone's massive body was swept sideways by this spear strike, which concentrated all of Rigurd's strength and skill, causing him to stagger several steps. A sharp pain shot through his waist, his breathing instantly became disordered, and his defensive posture completely collapsed. It's not over yet. Yafu, binding bite. How could Rigurd let go of this hard-won chance to win? Yafu, in perfect sync with him, almost simultaneously with Steelbone's loss of balance, roared and pounced, biting down hard on Steelbone's sword-wielding arm. The powerful impact and biting force dragged Steelbone, preventing him from adjusting his posture to counterattack immediately. Roared and pounced, biting down hard on Steelbone's sword-wielding arm. The powerful impact and biting force dragged Steelbone, preventing him from adjusting his posture to counterattack immediately. Steelbone roared, trying to break free, but Rigurd's long spear had already struck again like a venomous snake. The cold spear tip steadily halted just before his unprotected throat. The entire arena fell into a dead silence. Everyone was stunned by this lightning-fast, earth-shattering reversal. A moment later, a deafening roar of cheers and gasps erupted. Winner! Winner! Rigurd and Yafu. Liliana's voice was almost distorted with excitement, her pretty face flushed red. Unbelievable. A stunning reversal. Captain Rigurd, despite a significant disadvantage in strength, through incredible teamwork, exquisite tactical planning, and the hidden ultimate skill shadow leap, seized contestant Steelbone's only momentary flaw, achieving this almost impossible victory. A hymn to wisdom and courage. This is Rimuru Tempest Federation's Wolf Cavalry Captain. In the VIP box, Rimuru let out a long breath and clapped vigorously. Charlotte Tempest's lips curved into an almost imperceptible smile. Milam Nava excitedly shouted, "Wow! So cunning! So amazing!" Meanwhile, in the audience, those who had bet on Steelbone's victory let out cries of anguish and despair, forming a stark contrast to the fervent cheers of Rigurd's supporters. The cunning merchant who had set up the betting, wiping cold sweat from his brow, looked at the small number of ecstatic gamblers on the light board who had bet on Rigurd's victory. A pained yet resigned expression on his face as he had to pay out. Rigurd retracted his long spear, dismounted from Yafu, and gave a solemn knight's bow to Steelbone, who was barely standing, his face complex but showing a hint of respect. Steelbone remained silent for a moment, then slowly sheathed his sword, nodded slightly, and turned to leave. The list on the magical light screen rotated mercilessly. The winner's name was barely imprinted before they were immediately thrown into the next unknown battle, while the loser's name quietly dimmed and vanished like dust scattered by the wind. The arena did not give any loser time to catch their breath or mourn. The cruel elimination mechanism, like cold gears, precisely and efficiently crushed the stamina and will of every competitor. Perhaps at this moment, Rigurd, who had just experienced a fierce battle, was dragging his exhausted body, heading to his next trial after a brief communication with Yafu. However, on the commentary platform, Liliana's highly penetrating voice had already drawn the focus of the entire venue to another competition zone that was just ready. Attention, everyone. Please focus your attention on Competition Zone 7. A highly anticipated match is about to begin. Excitement sparkled in her pink eyes. Appearing now as the one who easily secured victory yesterday with absolute power, demonstrating the tenacity and might of the Pigmen tribe, J.L.D. Accompanied by heavy footsteps, Geld, resembling a small fortress, walked into the arena. His massive physique almost blocked some of the sunlight shining onto the arena. The enormous war hammer was casually resting on his broad shoulder, and bulging muscles lay beneath his light brown skin. His honest face carried an unchanging hint of gentleness, but his eyes were filled with focus and seriousness toward the fight. Simply standing there, he resembled an unshakable mountain, exuding a reassuring aura of stability. And his opponent, Liliana's voice suddenly rose, carrying a hint of awe. Making her debut, hailing from the ogre, drawing attention with her unique demeanor and fierce skill, contestant, Cage Xian. A starkly different figure, like moonlight silently slipping into view, appeared soundlessly opposite Geld. Her figure was tall and straight, like a proud snow lotus growing on a sheer cliff. A tight, dark purple battle suit outlined fluid, explosive lines, forming a silent contrast to Geld's solid massiveness. Her waterfall of jet black hair was simply tied back, revealing a smooth forehead and a delicate face that seemed covered in 10,000 years of frost. Her eyes were deep amethyst, devoid of any emotional fluctuation, holding only a soul-chilling indifference. She held a beautifully curved short blade in each hand. The blades were narrow and long, reflecting a chilling gleam. Standing there, the temperature of the surrounding air seemed to drop by a few degrees. An extreme coldness that pushed people away and focused entirely on her own world. Without any words, the immense sense of contrast had already captured the minds of all the spectators. On one side was the honest, mountain-like wall of protection with boundless strength. On the other, the ice-cold, sharp, and exposed blade of absolute shadow. The match begins. As soon as the referee's voice fell, Cage Xian moved. Her start was silent, not an explosive dash, but like a phantom merging into the gaps between light and shadow. Her steps possessing a strange rhythm, her figure elusive, instantly closing the distance with Geld. Her speed was so fast that only a blurry purple afterimage remained. Geld let out a low growl, daring not to be careless. The massive war hammer brought with it a howling wind, attempting to block all possible paths of entry for Cage Xian with a powerful, heavy horizontal sweep. He believed that if the opponent was even grazed by the hammer wind, they would surely be unable to withstand it. However, everything seemed to have been calculated in advance within Cage Xian's cold, purple eyes. Just before the war hammer made contact, her body twisted at an incredible angle as if boneless, her toes lightly tapping the ground, narrowly sliding past the hammerhead, while her left short blade, like a scorpion stinger, flashed like lightning toward Geld's exposed arm joint due to the swing. Tear. The sound of cloth tearing rang out. The armor on Geld's arm was sliced open, and although the cut wasn't deep, a sting of pain was already felt. What fast blades! Geld's heart tightened, and he immediately pulled back his war hammer, shifting to a defensive stance. He realized that this cold opponent's agility and unpredictability far surpassed Gabuan from yesterday. Cage Xian remained silent, moving rapidly around Geld, this mountain of flesh, like a maggot attached to bone. Her footwork was unpredictable, sometimes drifting like willow catkins, sometimes darting out like a spiritual snake leaving its hole. Her twin blades transforming into two fatal purple electric lights, never clashing head-on with the war hammer. Always attacking from strange and tricky angles, aiming for joints, ligaments, and the gaps in the armor. Clang! Clang! The crisp sounds of metal clashing and cloth tearing were incessant. Geld wielded his war hammer so tightly that it was impenetrable, repeatedly deflecting the fatal stabs with his immense strength and defense. But his attacks repeatedly missed. The heavy war hammer appeared clumsy and slow before Cage Xian's phantom-like movement technique. He was like a giant bear constantly harassed by a nimble hummingbird, possessing the strength to shake mountains, yet having no place to use it. Fatigue gradually accumulated. The situation is quite unfavorable for contestant Geld. Liliana commentated nervously. Contestant Cage Xian's movement technique is too unpredictable, and her twin blades are fierce and swift, completely countering contestant Geld's power-based fighting style. Although contestant Geld's defense is solid, prolonged defense is bound to lead to failure. Small wounds began to accumulate on Geld's body, though not deep. Blood gradually stained his armor red. His breathing became heavy. The continuous full-force defense and repeated missed attacks were greatly draining his physical and mental energy. Cage Xian remained as cold as an iceberg, her eyes showing no fluctuation, as if she were merely executing a predetermined program. But the light deep within her purple eyes grew increasingly sharp. She was waiting for a bigger flaw to appear in her opponent, waiting for that moment that would decide the victory. Finally, after strenuously deflecting Cage Xian's consecutive twin-blade stabs, Geld suffered an extremely brief, almost imperceptible backward shift of his center of gravity due to inertia. Now, a cold light burst forth from Cage Xian's purple eyes. The speed she had been holding back completely erupted at this moment. She transformed into a true purple lightning bolt, no longer circling, but cutting straight into the center. Her twin blades crossed, one high and one low, the upper one aiming for the throat, the lower one stabbing the waist and abdomen. This was her ultimate killing blow, condensing all her vital energy and spirit. The speed was extreme, and the blade edge was incomparably sharp. Geld's pupils contracted sharply. Bringing the war hammer back in defense was already too late. Relying only on instinct, he roared, pouring the remaining magic essence into his left arm, fiercely blocking the short blade aimed at his throat. While desperately twisting his waist, attempting to dodge the fatal blow below. PFF'd. A flash of blood appeared. The lower short blade ultimately could not be completely avoided, plunging deeply into Geld's waist. As for the blade aimed at the throat, it was barely blocked by his arm covered in magic essence. The blade tip sliced through the muscle of his arm, leaving it bloody. The immense pain made Geld let out a muffled groan, and his massive body swayed. But relying on the tenacious vitality and will of the pigmen tribe, he surprisingly did not fall. His eyes wide with fury, his free right hand suddenly grabbed toward the nearby Cage Xian. Cage Xian clearly hadn't expected her opponent to counterattack after such a severe injury. Having successfully landed the strike, she immediately pulled out her blade and retreated, her figure swiftly moving back like a floating fallen leaf, barely avoiding Geld's massive palm that could crush rocks. She landed several meters away, slightly panting, her hands holding the blades still steady, her purple eyes calmly watching her opponent. As for Geld, blood gushed from his waist and arm, staining a large patch of the ground. He used his war hammer to support his body, barely managing not to collapse, clearly unable to fight further. The referee intervened appropriately, standing between the two. The winner, Cage Xian. Liliana announced the result, her voice carrying a hint of complexity. A magnificent display of using skill to defeat strength. Contestant Cage Xian, with her unpredictable movement technique and fierce blade work, defeated the powerful contestant Geld and successfully advanced. A burst of enthusiastic applause erupted in the spectator stands, containing both astonishment at Cage Xian's great strength and respect for Geld's tenacious struggle. Geld endured the intense pain and, facing Cage Xian's direction, managed to show an honest, apologetic smile. As if saying, "Sorry, I couldn't give you a better fight." Then slowly left the arena, supported by his pigmen tribe comrades who had rushed over. Cage Xian merely glanced indifferently at his retreating figure, silently sheathed her blades, and turned to leave. That cold retreating figure suggesting that, for her, this battle was merely brushing off a snowflake that had landed on her shoulder. The magical light screen operated mercilessly. When the name of the next opponent appeared, a burst of extremely fervent cheers erupted from one section of the audience, while low sighs came from two other areas. First match, Gabiru vs Benimaru. Next up, the highly anticipated main event. Liliana's voice was inciting, featuring the beloved leader of the Dragonute race, Lord Gabiru. Pitted against one of the strongest warriors of our ogre, Lord Benimaru. Gabiru, surrounded by a group of Dragonute race subordinates dressed in uniform and shouting deafeningly, strode into the arena with high spirits. He elegantly flicked his bangs, his face beaming with absolute confidence, as if victory was already within his grasp. Gabiru. 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 Lord Gabiru is the strongest. Lord Gabiru is the champion. The fervent shouts of his subordinates almost lifted the arena's roof, creating an invisible oppressive aura. Gabiru performed what he considered a dashing sword salute to Benimaru. Sir Benimaru, it is my honor to cross blades with you. I will show you the true power of the Dragonute race. Benimaru calmly drew the Tachi, Guren, from his waist, his crimson eyes devoid of any ripple. As if the surrounding clamor had nothing to do with him. Less talk, let's begin. His voice was steady and cold. Match start. Gabiru launched the first attack. His figure moved, and his speed was indeed far superior to ordinary warriors. His trident, like a venomous snake striking from its hole, pierced directly towards Benimaru's face with a sharp whooshing sound. This trident strike was fast, accurate, and ruthless, drawing another round of thunderous cheers from his subordinates. However, Benimaru merely shifted his body slightly. The Gurren in his hand struck later but arrived first with even greater speed. The blade precisely hitting Gabiru's trident. Clang! A powerful force, far beyond Gabiru's imagination, struck him. His arm went numb, and the trident was instantly deflected. In the second round, Gabiru attempted an aerial ambush using the Dragonute race's unique gliding ability, his trident raining down like a torrent. Benimaru's feet remained still. His tachi danced above his head, forming a crimson blade wheel that deflected all attacks, sending sparks flying. In the third round, Gabiru landed and tried to stab at Benimaru's lower body from a tricky angle. Benimaru flicked his wrist, and the hilt of his sword parried Gabiru's trident as if it had foreknowledge. Fourth, fifth, sixth rounds. Gabiru exhausted all his tricks. His speed was undeniably fast. And his trident technique was undeniably exquisite. Yet in the face of Benimaru's defense and counterattacks, which were as solid as a rock and as fluid as water, they appeared so pale and powerless. Benimaru didn't even use any flashy moves, merely the most basic blocks, deflections, and counterattacks. He neutralized all of Gabiru's offensives as if they were nothing. 10th round. A crimson glint flashed in Benimaru's eyes. He, who had been on the defensive, finally moved. He took a step, as if shrinking distance, instantly closing in on Gabiru. Gurren, carrying a scorching airflow, was no longer merely striking but fiercely chopping with its blunt side onto Gabiru's hastily parrying blade. Boom! Gabiru felt an irresistible immense force surge like a volcanic eruption. His long halberd flew out of his hand, his tiger's mouth split open, and he himself was sent flying backward like a kite with a broken string, crashing heavily against the protective wall at the edge of the arena. Without even a grunt, he immediately fainted. The entire venue fell silent. The previously fervent subordinates were as if choked, their cheers abruptly ceasing. After a moment, they finally reacted, letting out unwilling wails and justifications. Lord Gabiru was careless. Lord Benimaru is too strong. It's not that Lord Gabiru is weak. Quick! Go check on Lord Gabiru. They rushed into the arena in a flurry, carefully lifting the unconscious Gabiru, carrying him out of the arena as if escorting a treasure, appearing somewhat endearing compared to their previous arrogance. Liliana announced at the opportune moment, the winner, Benimaru. Lord Benimaru easily advances with overwhelming strength. Second match, Soka vs Soe. Immediately after, another highly anticipated internal duel unfolded. Next up, contestant Soka, skilled in assassination and intelligence, will face her direct superior, Lord Soe, also renowned for his assassination techniques. Soka silently walked into the arena. She looked at the figure opposite her, silent as a shadow, his aura almost merging with the surroundings. A hint of imperceptible complex emotion flickered deep within her cold eyes. It was a mix of awe, adoration, and a trace of, an even deeper, subtle admiration. She knew that the object of her admiration was despairingly strong, but to face him directly was itself a form of closeness, wasn't it? Soe maintained his perpetually indifferent expression, as if the person standing opposite him wasn't his capable subordinate, but merely a target to be eliminated. Begin. Without superfluous words, the battle erupted instantly, or rather, it began silently. Both moved simultaneously. There were no earth-shattering clashes, only two blurred shadows rapidly intertwining, separating, and intertwining again in the arena. The faint hiss of kunai and shuriken cutting through the air, and the occasional dull thud of bodies colliding, formed the main theme of this battle. Their movements were dazzlingly fast, every step contained multiple contingencies, every feint was deadly. Soka had given her all, pushing every assassination technique she had learned and comprehended to its limit. Her figure like a ghost, her attacks like a sudden downpour. She knew she had the strength to reach the top 8. However, Soe was like a bottomless, secluded pool. All her attacks, no matter how tricky the angle or how bizarre the timing, were easily seen through and neutralized by him. His movements were always a step faster than hers, his judgment always a degree more accurate. He seemed to anticipate all her thoughts, all her modes of action. To onlookers, it was a thrilling and dangerous confrontation. To Soe, perhaps it was merely a drill whose outcome was already known. Finally, during a high-speed exchange, Soe's finger seemed to pierce through space, precisely landing on the acupuncture point of Soka's wrist holding the kunai. A jolt of numbness instantly spread through her entire arm, and the kunai clattered to the ground. Soka's body stiffened, and she stopped moving. She looked at Soe, who was now very close. His cold eyes still devoid of any emotion, as if he had merely brushed away a speck of dust. You are still not fast enough. Soe's clear, cold voice rang out, like an ice pick piercing Soka's heart. She lowered her head, biting her lip tightly, not allowing herself to show any weakness. Winner, Soe. Liliana announced. Soe didn't spare Soka another glance. His figure, as if melting into the shadows, quietly vanished from the arena. Soka silently picked up the kunai from the ground, gazing in the direction he disappeared, remaining motionless for a long time. She stopped short of the top 8, but the emotions in her heart were perhaps more complex and difficult to express than mere victory or defeat. Thus, Gabiru and Soka, the siblings, both unfortunately encountered top-tier powerhouses earlier than they should have in the tournament, regretfully ending their journey in this martial arts competition. As the tournament progressed, the atmosphere inside the arena grew increasingly heated, as if the magic essence permeating the air had begun to stir restlessly. When the names of those already renowned figures appeared on the magical screen, it instantly ignited the passion of the entire crowd, and the tsunami of cheers almost seemed to pierce the sky. When Benimaru appeared in the arena, he seemed to possess an inherently reassuring, leadership aura. His crimson short hair resembled dancing flames, and a composed, confident smile graced his handsome face. It was as if the upcoming event was not a brutal elimination match but a predetermined rehearsal. Regardless of whether his opponent was a Pigmen tribe warrior skilled in defense and as sturdy as an iron wall, or a goblin wolf cavalry member known for their integrated man and wolf unity and rapid, storm-like assaults, he simply rested one hand casually on the hilt of his beloved sword, Gurren, at his waist, his steps as steady as a mountain. The battle often lost all suspense the moment the referee announced the start. No one could clearly see how he drew his sword. They could only see a crimson sword flash, so hot it seemed capable of melting steel, which streaked past in an instant with the undeniable majesty of lava flowing from a volcanic eruption. The opponent's weapon was either flicked high into the air with incomparable precision, or they were forced to retreat repeatedly by the unparalleled sharpness of the sword wind. In the end, they could only admit defeat with faces full of shock. From beginning to end, Benimaru's breathing never even faltered. His clothes fluttered lightly, that bottomless composure and absolute strength formed a chasm of despair for his rivals. On a different field, Soe's battles exhibited another kind of extreme, spine-chilling style. He stood silently at the edge of the arena, as if he were the embodiment of shadow itself. His cold eyes carried no trace of human emotion, only a void of icy chill. His opponents often felt the air around them instantly solidify into a viscous gel. Even before the referee's announcement of the start had fully concluded, countless threads of magic essence, imperceptible to the naked eye yet incredibly tough, had already arrived silently like independent, spectral tentacles. They emerged from all directions, from the shadows beneath his feet, wrapping around his limbs and torso without a sound. In the blink of an eye, before an expression of astonishment could even form, a tightly bound, humanoid, cicada cocoon, had formed, standing motionless in the center of the arena. Soe had not even moved half a step, nor had his gaze shifted, yet the battle was already over. All that remained was a moment of dead silence from the audience, followed by gasps of shock, and a profound dread toward his eerie, unpredictable methods that seemed capable of dominating the shadows. In stark contrast with Xian's battlefield. She was like a true Valkyrie descended upon the mortal world, her long purple hair wildly dancing without wind, driven by her immense aura. In her scarlet eyes burned a near obsessive, absolute devotion to victory. The power she championed was so pure that it required no flashy techniques. Facing any opponent who dared to charge her, no matter how imposing their momentum, She simply swung the massive, fearsome Goriki Maru in her hand as if shooing away a fly. With that seemingly casual swing, terrifying power instantly compressed the air in front of her, forming a visible, tangible, transparent shockwave that let out a scream like tearing cloth. No opponent, whether a mighty pigmen tribe warrior holding a heavy tower shield, or an ogre warrior clad in fine steel armor, could withstand this unreasonable blow head-on. Both the person and their armor would be sent flying, as if struck by a boulder launched from a catapult. Screaming as they were blasted away, tracing an arc through the air before crashing heavily outside the arena, decisively losing the match. Her strength was so direct, so overbearing, and so overwhelming, that facing such absolute power extinguished all thoughts of resistance. Gobta's matches were always full of unexpected drama. Unlike his arrogance yesterday, today he resembled a poisonous snake slithering in the shadows, slippery and deadly. He used shadow movement with divine mastery, his figure flickering in and out of sight within the arena. He seemed capable of appearing in multiple locations simultaneously, leaving behind realistic afterimages to confuse his opponents. His enemies often couldn't even touch the hem of his clothes, forced to run around like headless flies. Desperately trying to cope with the incessant, storm-like dagger attacks launched from their blind spots, from above, and even from the shadows beneath their feet. Desperately trying to cope with the incessant, storm-like dagger attacks launched from their blind spots, from above, and even from the shadows beneath their feet. He clearly held back most of his strength, neither summoning his partner nor revealing any other trump cards. Relying solely on this perfected, phantom-like solo combat ability was enough to leave all his opponents flustered and overwhelmed, ultimately leading to their defeat amidst extreme frustration and chaos. The audience was astonished by his rate of growth and simultaneously grew more curious about just how incredible the hidden trump cards of this seemingly carefree goblin boy truly were. Krut's battle carried an unsettling strangeness, as if he possessed the power to corrode all things. The young master of the pigmen tribe simply stood calmly in the arena. Around him, yellowish-brown, corrosive energy gas naturally spread, coiling and twisting like a living entity. Sometimes these gases condensed into vicious snake heads, emitting a grating hiss. Sometimes they spread into a thin mist, making even the light that penetrated it appear dim and distorted. His opponents, upon attempting to approach him within a certain range, would discover in terror that their meticulously crafted armor and weapons were being rapidly corroded and rusted by some dreadful force at a visible speed, even emitting a hissing sound of dissolution. Even more terrifyingly, the circulation of magic essence within their bodies became sluggish and heavy, as if trapped in an invisible mire. Krut rarely needed to actively attack, he simply advanced steadily, as if taking a stroll. The spreading domain of the Eshi power would move with him, continuously compressing the opponent's maneuvering space, dismantling their defense and fighting spirit, ultimately forcing the opponent to reluctantly concede defeat in despair before their magic and physical strength were doubly exhausted. This ability to silently strip away and corrupt all things sent shivers down the spines of the observers. Meanwhile, the combination of Rigurd and Yafu continued to interpret the battlefield philosophy of the wolf cavalry with their unique stability and efficiency. They did not pursue the ultimate display of individual skill like Gobta. Nor did they possess the overwhelming, condescending power of Benimaru. Instead, they had perfected the essence of wolf cavalry tactics and the absolute trust between partners. Speed, timing, feints, decoys, precise assaults. They were like an incredibly precise war machine, steadily cutting down powerful enemies of considerable skill with one flawless coordinated operation after another. Rigurd's calm command and Yafu's perfect execution complemented each other, demonstrating the solid foundation and irreplaceable reliability of a captain of the Rimuru Tempest Federation's border patrol. However, on the arena today, the performance of two female competitors was no less dazzling than the others mentioned. On Cage Xian's battlefield, she interpreted, eerie, and fierce, to new heights. Her tall, aloof figure seemed truly integrated into the gaps between light and shadow. Her footwork was no longer merely swift, but carried an unnatural rhythm, like traversing a dream. Her opponent, a pigmen tribe warrior renowned for defense and wielding a massive axe, couldn't even accurately judge where she would appear next. Cage Xian's attack was not just fast, it was extremely tricky. Her twin daggers were like venomous fangs, targeting the armor joints, the insides of the limbs, and even the opponent's blind spots. The flash of her blades was not singular, but two deadly arcs that intertwined, sometimes running parallel, sometimes crossing, carrying a cold, penetrating chill. Every collision between her blades and the battle axe or armor not only produced the clang of metal, but also bursts of cold, ghostly blue sparks that seemed capable of freezing magic essence. The Pigmen tribe warrior, despite his brute strength, was flustered and overwhelmed by these pervasive, phantom-like attacks. His heavy armor was quickly covered in scratches of varying depths and frostbite-like marks. He ultimately conceded defeat, sweating profusely, after Cage Xian delivered a finishing blow that slipped through his defensive net like an illusion, the tip of her blade lightly touching his throat. Her victory was the perfect triumph of skill and speed, filled with suffocating elegance and lethality. And the other person who caused gasps throughout the arena was the ogre. Enka. In stark contrast to Cage Xian's chilling strangeness. Enka was a cute, orange-haired girl who looked full of vitality. But the moment she entered combat, she instantly transformed into a humanoid turret, unleashing destructive energy. Her opponent, a goblin priest also skilled in magic, hadn't even fully deployed his first defensive spell before Enka's chant was complete. If those brief, almost negligible syllables could even be called a chant. Flame Sparrow Rapid Fire. Explosion Fireball. Lava Eruption. Her clear voice was like issuing a command, accompanied by a continuous barrage of scorching magic that was almost instantly cast. One after another, sparrows composed of pure flames screamed as they swarmed out. This was followed by massive, scorching fireballs with bright white cores. Finally, she even affected the ground, erupting area of effect streams of scorching lava. The entire arena instantly turned into an inferno, with deafening explosions. Heat waves distorted the air and rolled toward the surrounding stands. The poor goblin priest. His magical shields shattered one after another like bubbles in the sunlight under such a ferocious, relentless bombardment. He was ultimately blasted out of the arena by the residual explosion of a flame sparrow striking from the side, smoking faintly and completely scorched. Enka clapped her hands, her face still bearing that harmless, cute smile. As if the world-destroying magical storm had nothing to do with her. Her terrifying magic essence reserves and appalling casting speed made all spectators deeply understand why she, as a mage, was able to forcefully break into this star-studded list of quarter-finalists. These powerhouses, standing at the apex of the Rimuru Tempest Federation, seemed to have made an agreement. With their own unique and unrivaled styles, they advanced triumphantly, easily crushing every opponent they encountered. Their matches were often over extremely quickly, yet each one was unforgettable, engraving deep marks on the audience's hearts with their distinct personalities and absolute strength. Finally, when all the brutal elimination matches on the morning of the second day concluded, the 8 strongest individuals of this martial arts tournament, standing tall in the arena and receiving the cheers of the masses, were the ogre young master, Benimaru, who was confident, composed, and unfathomable like fire. Soe, the cold executor who was like shadow itself and mastered the art of binding and killing. Xian, who descended like a Valkyrie and crushed all obstacles with absolute brute force. Cage Xian, the icy war goddess whose footwork was ghostly, whose blades were sharp as ice, and who heard thunder in the silence. Rigurd, the wolf cavalry captain whose tactics were superb, who was in perfect sync with his partner, and who was as steady as a mountain. Krut, the Pigmen tribe young master who controlled the eerie power of corroding all things. Gobta, the goblin genius whose footwork was cunning as a fox, who kept his true power hidden, revealing only the tip of the iceberg. And Enka, the ogre flame mage, who was cute in appearance but possessed the terrifying firepower of a humanoid disaster, incinerating everything in her path with relentless bombardment. This list of 8 quarter-finalists was itself a declaration of the strong, foreshadowing that tomorrow's final elimination rounds would undoubtedly unleash the most brilliant light, enough to be recorded in the annals of the Rimuru Tempest Federation. The entirety of Lilim City was completely abuzz for the impending ultimate showdown. So, the top 8 have been decided. In the VIP box, Rimuru looked at the arena below, which was being cleaned and repaired, his tone filled with relief and emotion. Seeing his subordinates so powerful, his heart swelled with pride. Indeed. Charlotte, who was beside him, uncharacteristically chimed in. His golden eyes glanced at Gobta, who was triumphantly waving to the audience and bouncing out of the arena. However, that kid Gobta always acts like he hasn't given his all. He's definitely up to no good. His lazy voice carried a hint of imperceptible playfulness and understanding, clearly seeing through Gobta's little scheme. At this moment, on the commentary stand, Liliana used her highly inflammatory voice to conclude the morning's events. After the intermission, the afternoon will feature the battles of the ultimate strong. Today, the highly anticipated top 4 will be decided. Which 4 warriors will advance further and touch the ticket to the finals? Let us rest and recuperate, we will see the outcome this afternoon. She bowed slightly. Her exquisite curves, encased in pure black bodysuit stockings, were fully displayed with her movement, once again drawing a round of enthusiastic whistles and cheers. The quarterfinals temporarily concluded, and the intense atmosphere slightly eased. The strong individuals who advanced to the top 8 each returned to their resting areas, using this precious time to recuperate. They adjusted their condition to face the even more brutal battles in the afternoon. At noon, the cafeteria designated for executives was livelier than usual. The 8 contestants who advanced and other executives had a brief lunch there to replenish their energy. Although the atmosphere was not as fervent as a victory banquet, it was filled with the warmth of comrades. Rigurd, good luck this afternoon. Gobta, with his mouth full of food, mumbled to Rigurd, who was not far away. Rigurd nodded steadily and replied. You too, Gobta. However, I won't lose to you easily. Though they were competitors, their tone lacked hostility, sounding more like comrades cheering each other on. Benimaru, Soe, Shion, and others also sat nearby, having their meal. Benimaru elegantly wiped the corner of his mouth. He said to Soe and Shion beside him, our opponents this afternoon will not be weak. We must go all out and not be careless. However, if they are our opponents, I will not hold back. Shion nodded vigorously. For Lord Rimuru, I will never lose. HMPH. Soe nodded in agreement, letting out a soft hum, a slight smile playing on his lips. Then he silently sipped his tea, his gaze sharp, clearly already contemplating tactics. Krut sat quietly among his orc kin, listening to their encouragement. Cage Shion sat alone by the window, eating quietly and recovering the stamina she had expended in the morning. Enka, the newly advanced ogre mage in the top 8, seemed somewhat excited, discussing in low voices with her familiar ogre companions. Meanwhile, deep within the administrative building, in Shuna's exclusive workshop, there was a tranquility and focus starkly different from the outside world's battle preparations. She hadn't gone to the cafeteria, still fully engrossed in the deep blue demon lord's formal attire. She was performing the final, most intricate magic embroidery. When Charlotte stopped by the workshop to check on the progress, he saw Shuna's focused profile, so absorbed that fine beads of sweat dotted her temples. Watching each stitch her fingertips left on the luxurious fabric, filled with respect and blessings. A clear flicker of emotion passed through Charlotte's golden eyes, which usually held a lazy gaze. He didn't speak to disturb her, just watched quietly for a while, then left silently, the warmth in his heart growing ever clearer. The brief lunch break quickly passed, and the top 8 contestants rose, their eyes once again sharp and determined. This afternoon, the ultimate elimination tournament to decide the 4 semi-finalists was about to begin. The eyes of the entire Lilim city once again focused on the magnificent arena. After a brief lunch break, the atmosphere in the arena was like a bowstring drawn to its limit, taut and ready to snap. The gaze of 100,000 spectators intensely focused on the largest main arena in the center. Because what was about to unfold was the first true internal derby of this martial arts tournament. It was also the battle for the throne within the goblin race. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for waiting. The thrilling battle for the top 4 officially begins now. Liliana's energetic voice echoed throughout the venue. She excitedly waved her small fists, her pink twin tails bouncing with her. And the first match will be a historic battle. It's between the 2 prides of our goblin race, 2 heroes who advanced to the top 8, Gobta vs Rigurd and his partner, Yafu. Oh 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 oh. The goblins' cheers instantly drowned out all other sounds. Whether supporting the cunning genius Gobta or the steady Captain Rigurd, everyone unleashed their enthusiasm at this moment. Gobta was the first to leap into the arena, still looking unserious. But a trace of unprecedented seriousness appeared deep in his eyes. Rigurd, riding on Yafu's back, calmly entered the arena. His gaze towards Gobta was filled with scrutiny and solemnity. He knew better than anyone that this junior of his race was no longer the little brat who used to just follow behind him. In the VIP box, Rimuru leaned forward with interest. Oh. They've finally met. Charlotte's golden eyes narrowed slightly, with a hint of inquiry. Little brother, let me see your limits. Milam, even more excited, put her hands on her hips and shouted into the arena. Gobta. If you win, I'll allow you to be my little brother. Wahahaha. On the field, the referee swung his arm down. Match. Start. Yafu, full attack. Rigurd didn't hesitate, launching his strongest offensive right from the start. He knew Gobta's tricky movements well and absolutely couldn't give him a chance to skirmish. Yafu let out a long howl, magic essence erupting at full power, moving faster than in any previous match. Like a silver lightning bolt, it carried Rigurd directly towards Gobta. The spear locked on, the aura of man and wolf merged into one, carrying an indomitable resolve. Facing this familiar yet even more ferocious wolf cavalry charge, the playful smile on Gobta's face instantly vanished. He did not choose to use shadow movement to dodge, because he knew that in such an open field and under Rigurd's focused lock, simply dodging would only force him into a desperate situation. Ha! Gobta let out a low growl, crossing his twin daggers in front of his chest, surprisingly choosing to meet the attack head-on. His entire body surged with magic essence, infused into his daggers, and the crossed blades precisely parried Rigurd's thunderous spear thrust. Clang! A deafening explosion rang out. The ground beneath Gobta's feet cracked inch by inch, and he was pushed back several meters by the immense impact. His arms were throbbing and numb, and a trace of blood even seeped from the corner of his mouth. But he had blocked it after all. With his own strength and magic essence, he had directly withstood the combined charge of Rigurd and Yafu. What? Rigurd's heart was greatly shaken. He hadn't expected Gobta's strength to grow to such an extent. However, Rigurd was a battle-hardened captain after all. When one attack failed, his offensive immediately unfolded like a tide. His coordination with Yafu was perfect. The long spear was like a dragon, continuously stabbing, sweeping, parrying, and smashing, while Yafu used his speed advantage. He constantly launched bites and claw attacks from the flanks and rear, forcing Gobta to be unable to fully respond to Rigurd's attacks. Gobta pushed shadow movement to its limit, constantly dodging and weaving in a small area. His twin daggers transformed into afterimages, desperately parrying the fierce attacks from both man and wolf. His speed was still astonishing, and his technique became increasingly refined, but under Rigurd's meticulous and ferocious tactical suppression. He seemed to be struggling, constantly in perilous situations. New wounds constantly appeared on his body, though not deep, they continuously drained his physical and mental strength. Captain Rigurd has the absolute upper hand. His tactics completely suppressed contestant Gobta's flexibility. Liliana commentated, her voice filled with tension. Although contestant Gobta has shown astonishing strength, facing such a mature fighting style, he seems to be in a desperate situation. In the stands, the cheers for Rigurd grew louder and louder. In the VIP box, Rimuru frowned slightly, a little worried. Charlotte, however, remained calm, merely commenting, only when pushed to the brink can one see their true potential. Gobta gritted his teeth and held on, his eyes flickering rapidly as he moved. Rigurd's tactics were almost flawless, his synergy with Yafu had reached a telepathic level. No matter how he tried to find a weakness, it would be timely covered and sealed by the other party. If this continued, defeat was only a matter of time. No choice. I originally wanted to save this for last. Big brother Rigurd, I'm sorry. Just as Rigurd's powerful chop was narrowly parried by Gobta, and Rigurd was about to follow up with Yafu's next pounce, a look of determination flashed in Gobta's eyes. He suddenly took a step back, not to dodge, but to let out a long howl to the sky. Ranga. This call seemed to contain a special contractual power, piercing through the arena's clamor. The next moment, the light above the arena suddenly dimmed. A surge of magic essence, far more violent and majestic than Yafu's, suddenly descended like a storm. A colossal black shadow descended from the sky at an almost imperceptible speed. It landed with a crash in front of Gobta, blocking him from Rigurd. As the dust settled, the figure revealed its true form, a giant black wolf, far larger and more magnificent than Yafu. Its fur was like the deepest night sky, and its four paws trod on faint black whirlwinds. A silver gleam on its forehead was like a star. Its crimson wolf eyes held coldness and arrogance, and the magic essence pressure emanating from its body silenced the entire arena. It was the son of Korin, the Black Storm Star Wolf personally named by Rimuru, Ranga. Ranga-sama. Rigurd's pupils contracted sharply, and Yafu was even more intimidated by this kingly aura, which was of the same origin but far superior to his own. He let out an uneasy growl and involuntarily took half a step back. The entire audience erupted in an uproar. No one had expected Gobta to be hiding such a terrifying trump card. He was actually able to enlist this special and powerful Black Storm Star Wolf to fight alongside him. In the VIP box, Rimuru suddenly stood up, his surprised expression quickly turning into realization and a wry smile. Oh, no wonder I haven't seen Ranga these past few days. I didn't expect Gobta to have spirited him away. Charlotte's lips curved into a knowing smile. The little brother has a trick up his sleeve. Neelam, meanwhile, shouted excitedly, "Wow! It's Ranga. This is going to be fun." Gobta wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, revealing an apologetic smile. Big brother Rigurd, I'm sorry, this is my final trump card. He flipped onto Ranga's broad back. In that moment, his entire aura perfectly merged with Ranga's magic essence, as if they had become one. Roar. Ranga let out a soul-shaking roar. Without any command. Its massive body had already transformed into a destructive black storm. It initiated a charge. Its speed far surpassed Yafu's. Its power was suffocating. Rigurd and Yafu resisted with all their might, but in the face of an absolute disparity in strength, all exquisite tactics appeared pale and powerless. Ranga didn't even need to use any special abilities. Merely relying on its terrifying speed, strength, and the black wind pressure swirling around its body. It easily broke through Rigurd and Yafu's defensive formation. With one swift pounce, Yafu was violently knocked away, and Rigurd's long spear was casually swatted aside by Ranga's claw. The outcome, from the moment Ranga appeared, was already decided. Looking at Ranga, who stood before him emanating a terrifying aura, and Gobta on its back, disheveled but with resolute eyes, Rigurd was silent for a moment. Finally, he smiled with relief and raised his hand to signal his surrender. He was utterly convinced of his defeat. Not only had Gobta's own strength soared, but to gain Ranga's recognition and assistance was itself proof of his ability and potential. Winner. Gobta and Ranga. Liliana's voice was filled with immense excitement and shock. An incredible reversal. Contestant Gobta, in a desperate situation, summoned the powerful Lord Ranga, winning this ultimate internal goblin showdown with overwhelming strength. Let us congratulate Gobta for being the first to advance to the semifinals. The entire venue erupted in unprecedented cheers. The combination of Gobta and Ranga became the biggest dark horse and highlight of this martial arts tournament. Rigurd stepped forward, looked at Gobta, and solemnly said, "You won, Gobta. You've proven your path. Carry my part with you and continue forward." Big brother Rigurd. Gobta put away his smile and nodded seriously. Captain Rigurd, representing the pinnacle that ordinary goblins can achieve through effort, discipline, and teamwork, stopped here, just outside the door to the semifinals. While Gobta, the rising star representing infinite possibilities and miracles, stepped on the shoulders of his predecessor, and together with his kingly companion, moved towards the next peak. Thanks for watching.